This kid from the slums became a top mercenary for a powerful family, only to watch them take his friends' lives. So he went and stole a legendary grimoire they never even knew existed, but in the end, they hunted him down and killed him. Or did they? The grimoire had other plans, rewinding time and sending him right back to his days as a beggar on the streets. But before we dive in, you know the drill. Hitting that like and subscribe button really helps me out. Now, with no more delay, let's get into the action. The story kicks off with our hero, Aster, watching a man named Ivor soaring through the sky, and he remembers how seeing that freedom is what made him decide to leave the great magic house of Declan and retire. But things were never going to be that simple, because right now, that same man is being hunted down. Or at least, he's supposed to be. He's already overpowered his pursuer, who demands to know since when he's been hiding his true skills. This wasn't the kind of power a simple mercenary should possess, but our confident main character just smirks at him, finding his shock naive, and asks if the book he's holding is a grimoire. The goon confirms it. Why else would they come after a mere hunting dog like him for no reason? But our boy scoffs that if the rest of the trash from House Deklan is like him, they definitely come in droves. Cutting to the chase, he demands to know how to use it, but the goon has no idea, and you can tell he's being honest. If the greedy Declans knew its secrets, it wouldn't have been buried in some cellar. Yet, even without knowing how to use it, they still chased him down, which means this thing is priceless. And with that, the goon tells him to hand it over, promising to beg the leader for mercy on his behalf. Maybe he could even go back to being a mercenary. But our hero just gives him a cold smile and asks what kind of power the mercenary manager has to make a promise like that. Then, he lifts the man into the air with his magic. With a chilling gaze, he asks for his last words. But before he can finish the job, a new figure appears on the scene. A man cloaked in dark energy walks slowly toward our boy. He introduces himself as Farron Deklan, the legendary head of the most powerful magic family in the East, a revelation that stuns our hero. Farron tells him that if it's not too much trouble, he'd like him to hand over the grimoire, and maybe they can talk afterwards. Our hero, Aster, thinks to himself that he served the Declan family for decades, but never once saw the mythical Farron in person, the most feared and respected sorcerer in Declan history. But our hero sizes him up carefully, wondering what kind of man he truly is. Hearing his request, he shows zero interest and even plays dumb. He says Farron is starting to annoy him and asks if he really thinks he can just steal something he worked so hard to obtain. But Farron just lets out a laugh loaded with arrogance. And our hero feels the crushing weight of the energy surrounding him. It's an absolutely overwhelming force, so intense that he immediately regrets his previous words. Noticing his fear, Farron changes his approach. He orders Aster to hand over the book, return to serving House Deklan, and all of his crimes will be forgiven. He acknowledges Aster's combat skills, admitting he regrets not noticing his absurd talent sooner. He finds it impressive that some trash from the gray zone, who only learned the garbage techniques mercenaries use, could reach this level of skill. With House Deklan's support, how far could he go? He ends by saying that by returning to his side, he could soar under the family's protection. He finishes by telling him they should join forces and make history together. And Aster says fine, he'll accept, but only if Farron gives him the position of family head. It was a shameless, blatant provocation that leaves Farron absolutely furious. Aster turns to him and asks, "Didn't you see how many people died for this?" As he unleashes his power, finishing off the other mercenary, which sends Farron into a complete rage. He tells our boy that this kind of defiance will cost him dearly, but our hero couldn't care less, saying it's worth the risk, as he charges straight at him, challenging him to a duel. And obviously, Farron accepts without hesitation, creating a shield effortlessly and saying he's going to teach him some respect. Aster, full of confidence, just says you never know if something is big or small until you measure it. The family head replies, "All right, it seems I'll have to put a leash on you." Then he unleashes his magic, attacking our boy without a flicker of concern and with very little effort, completely stunning our hero. But he manages to dodge just in time, thinking, so this is the power of the Declan patriarch. There's not a single opening. And Farron asks him, "Didn't you say you needed to measure it to know?" "Some things," he continues, "you don't need to measure to understand." A gigantic magic circle appears in front of our hero as Farron declares that now he will learn the difference between them, causing a massive explosion. As the smoke begins to clear, Farron says he didn't kill him, just roughed him up a bit, and asks if he's ready to negotiate now. But even wounded, our hero is still standing. He asks if Farron would really take him back if he agreed to become their little dog again. But he immediately answers his own question, saying, "Of course not." With his face covered in blood, he screams that he's tired of living on dog food. Lightning crackles around him as he explodes with fury, shouting that no one in their right mind would live, chained up like a luxury ornament in a grand house. But Farron just calls him a fool and makes the entire sky begin to tremble. Purple lightning storms across the air. And in that moment, our hero understands why he looked up at that bird flying free earlier. He finally realized what he truly wanted, his own freedom. And even as a devastating attack closes in, he doesn't back down. Farron watches with a shred of respect, admitting he thought the last blow would have killed him. "Now do you feel the difference in our power?" he asks. But our boy remains on his feet, acknowledging the enemy's overwhelming strength. Farron relaxes and says that now they can finally talk properly. But what comes next leaves Aster completely stunned. Farron offers him the position of head of one of the Declan's affiliated families, the Bogshin family. This leaves Aster speechless. He thinks about the Bogshin family and recalls that House Deklan, the most powerful magic clan on the eastern continent, is mighty enough to challenge the throne itself. And they want him to swear loyalty as one of their vassal families. "So that was your goal," Aster says, pulling the grimoire from his storage space. Farron tells him he underestimates his own value. "I want you, and the grimoire," he declares. The two of them face off as our boy clutches the ancient book. As he holds out the grimoire, Farron says, "Excellent. You made the right choice. This absolves all your crimes," and he reaches out to take it. But to his shock, our boy says that all the rest is the glory of becoming part of something he wants absolutely nothing to do with, as he sets the grimoire on fire right in front of him. The family leader is utterly enraged, demanding to know what he's doing. Our hero just grins. "What do you think? You said you wanted me to give it to you. You never said you wanted it in one piece." Farron, seething with rage, promises him his death won't be painless. But our boy just tells him to shut his mouth, because he never did any of this for money. "Being a mercenary doesn't even pay that well," he says. "So why did I stick with it? Because it was connected to money." Then he asks, "Have you ever heard of the mercenaries devoured by the young master of House Deklan?" The question stuns the family leader as he recalls the forbidden magic. Our boy confirms it. That monster devoured his friends, and the Declans covered it all up. Farron asks if this was all for revenge, but our hero just smiles again. Why would he do that? He knows a mercenary's life isn't worth much, just like his friends. He just wanted to give them what they wanted, but for that, he needed a lot of money. And after all that, he finally decided to retire, but he'd never go back to that kennel. Farron just turns and tells him to consider those his last words, and with a snap of his fingers, blue flames erupt around our boy. Farron boasts that this is the glorious azure flame of the Declan family, a fire that never dies. He tells him to burn and regret every choice he's ever made with every fiber of his being, but his eyes go wide as he scoffs. "Regret? You can go to hell." He thinks if this is his only choice, he'd rather return to the gray zone than remain the Declan family's dog. And if he can't even do that, then dying is a much better option. Engulfed in fire, he starts to laugh a raw, demonic laugh, realizing he's never felt so free. It's a shame he can't escape alive, but in the end, he has no regrets. And if he were born again, he would seize his freedom, and he would definitely get his revenge. But in that moment, to Asher's shock, a spell activates called The Winds Converge. And just like that, the azure flames are completely scattered, stunning our hero. Staring at the scene, he can't process what just happened. What the hell is this? He wonders. Farron stands with his back to him, but from his view, time itself has frozen. He looks around in utter shock. Suddenly, he notices the grimoire still burning in his hand. But in the next instant, the book begins to float as strange magic circles appear over his heart. He keeps wondering what these symbols are and what the hell is going on. And right after that, he finds himself in a different place, still not understanding how he possibly survived. But he feels something is wrong. The air feels familiar, almost like he's back in the gray zone. And then it hits him, the memory coming back with crushing force. He really is back in the gray zone, the same slum where he fought to survive before becoming a mercenary. No way, he thinks. He truly has returned to the past. Looking at his reflection in a puddle, he starts to process it. His body is younger, but the mark is still there, those burning magic circles. Seeing it, he concludes the grimoire must have done this. The fact that Farron came to get that book himself proves just how important it was. And thinking about it, going back in time might be a good thing. It's basically a second chance. In the end, it was worth it. He thinks to himself that this is way too real to be a dream. He doubts it is when the stench of the sewers is too vivid. With that thought, he gets fired up about this new opportunity to achieve success, no matter the cost. He begins to remember a dream he once had, a dream from his past, one he shared with his friends. It was one of the reasons he decided to retire in the first place. He recalls a conversation with his friend who told him they were born as beggars in the gray zone with nothing. They had no clothes, no food, not even an education. His friend asked which of those he thought was the worst. Asher guessed it was the hunger, but his friend said if it was just hunger, they wouldn't be there. right now. He then asked what Aster thought led them to this crappy life. Aster just said he was actually fine with it, but his friend got angry, yelling that the reason their lives went down the drain. Aster cuts him off, saying he already told him he was fine with it. His friend just gets even more pissed, glaring at him with pure rage. Aster apologizes and tells him to continue. His friend explains that not having an education was the worst part. If they had studied, they wouldn't have been enslaved by those damn nobles. He said he wanted to build a library where anyone could read for free. Inspired, our boy dreamed even bigger. He wanted to build a gigantic tower filled with books, and he'd place the Declan family's secret manual right at the entrance on the first floor. Anyone, whether a beggar or a butcher, could learn the techniques of the family that enslaved him. Just imagining it sends a thrill through him. The only problem would be getting the books, but he'd leave that for his future self to solve. Deep down, his true goal was simple: spread the Declan family's secrets until he watched their entire legacy crumble to dust. But his moment of reflection is brutally cut short by a boot smashing into his face as a kid appears, absolutely furious, screaming at him for not staying put. He starts kicking him without mercy. Surprised, Aster lets his mercenary instincts take over and blocks one of the blows. He calmly states that he took the kicks, and now it's time to return them tenfold. He prepares to counterattack, but immediately realizes his mistake with the sound of cracking bone. To his horror, his hand is fractured. The attacker calls him crazy for hitting an older kid, throwing him to the ground and continuing the beatdown. Every blow hurts his body, but it's his pride that really breaks. Seizing an opening, he pushes back, sending the kid tumbling into the sewer canal. Seeing his chance to escape, he doesn't think twice and starts running. The other boy gets up, coughing, and yells, "Where did that little rat go?" But Aster mutters that he isn't running. This is just a tactical retreat. He promises himself he'll remember that face and the 57 hits he took. After all, a mercenary never forgets. After getting away, he realizes he's in trouble. His wrist is throbbing, and he can barely make a fist. Sitting there, completely defeated, he just sighs. He realizes that with this weak body, his dream tower will have to wait. The priority now is to fix and strengthen his own body first. But just then, a childish voice interrupts him. A white-haired kid appears, asking if he's hungry. Aster just eyes him with suspicion and asks if he knows him. The boy just shakes his head, but Aster notices his expensive, though worn-out, clothes and guesses he must be the son of some disgraced noble. Basically, a ticking time bomb ready to explode. The boy introduces himself as Damian, son of a woman named Bianca, while our hero feels like he's hearing things he really shouldn't. A bit uneasy, he asks if he's an orphan. Damian innocently replies out of nowhere that he doesn't have a mother. Our hero feels a brief pang in his chest, but covers it with a joke, telling him they should part ways now. He thinks it's best not to get involved with this time bomb and plans to send him away before things get worse. But Damian just stays where he is, staring at Aster. Aster asks if he isn't going to leave. Damian insists on following him. Our hero tries to refuse, raising a hand to swat him away, but the boy notices his injured wrist and asks if it hurts. Before our boy can answer, he places a hand on the wound, and an intense soft light spreads over him, healing it instantly. Aster is completely shocked, recognizing the magic immediately as the light of healing, a secret art of the Blandor family, which fell to ruin thanks to the Declans. His instincts scream that this is dangerous. Why would a child of the Blandor family be right here, in front of him, at this exact time? He keeps repeating the name in his mind, Damian, and in that moment, he remembers something crucial: a Blandor with different colored eyes. His blood runs cold as he realizes the truth. This kid isn't just anyone. He's Damian Van Blandor, the monster who doesn't die even when he's killed. While our hero senses tremendous danger before him, Damian just crouches down and watches some ants. Aster wonders if they can possibly be the same person. Our boy starts to recall the past, back when he was still working as a mercenary and was sent to the Blandor family's lands. He and his comrades were complaining about how absurd it was that they had to do the work the Blandor family should have been doing themselves. During their chat, one of them mentioned the rumors about the monster attacking the area, a creature that had already killed dozens of people. They wondered what kind of monster it could be, an ogre or something. But the memory that flooded back was nothing like that. No, what he witnessed was a living nightmare, one man tearing another limb from limb. And that man was Damian. He fought relentlessly, a psychotic grin plastered on his face, using healing magic to stay on his feet when he should have been long dead. A true berserker butcher, a human who refused to die, even in death. The memory shatters, snapping him back to the present. And there before him is Damian, now just an innocent kid watching ants on the ground. Aster is totally floored, unable to connect the two images. The brutal murderer with this scrawny little kid. He can't help but wonder why the heir to the Blandor family, the Lord's only son, is living a life of absolute misery. But Damian cuts him off, babbling about food. He says his mom told him that eating well keeps you from getting sick. and Aster must be sick, because he doesn't eat right. Our guy kinda agrees, but he finds the kid's delivery super condescending and asks if he's short on cash. But to Aster's shock, the kid pulls out a heavy pouch, dumping a pile of shiny gold coins right in front of him. He then asks if this is what he meant. Aster is speechless for a second. Then a sly grin spreads across his face. He declares that as of this very moment, they are officially best friends. Throwing an arm around him, he tells Damian that friends share everything. Then he starts dragging the kid off to find an inn and some food. When Damian asks what our hero has to share, he just grins and says, "I have a friend," obviously talking about Damian himself. And after a much-needed bath, our main character feels totally refreshed. He watches Damian explore the room above the restaurant, completely amazed by it. The kid admits it's his first time seeing a place like this, since he's always slept on the streets. In the middle of their chat, he casually tells Aster he doesn't have a dad. Our guy, just messing with him, fires back, "Yeah, you totally have a dad." And the two of them start to get into this super dumb, childish argument about it, until our hero wonders why the hell he's even competing over something so stupid. He switches gears and asks about Damian's mom. The kid glances around nervously before saying she isn't here. The weird answer gets Aster's gears turning. He decides to dig a little deeper, asking how long Damian has been on his own. The kid thinks for a moment and says that since running away from home, he's slept 10 times. Aster starts doing the math, figuring Damian is a runaway and 10 sleeps must mean about 10 days. But then Damian explains he sometimes sleeps twice a day, if you count naps, and Aster starts recalculating. Okay, so maybe he ran away 3, maybe 4 days ago, but his brain short-circuits when Damian adds that he didn't take any naps this time. That's all the proof our hero needs to conclude, that this kid is 100% certifiably insane. Still, he starts mapping out his future. He realizes having Damian around could be a golden opportunity. The kid could act as a bodyguard, and he's also the direct heir to the powerful Blandor family, which could be super useful in his upcoming war with the Declans. Plus, of course, noble houses have massive libraries, and our guy desperately needs to study. But first things first, he had some urgent business to take care of. His 57-hit revenge plan against the punk who jumped him. So he tells Damian he's gonna lie down and not to bug him. The kid asks if he's doing his breathing exercises, and Aster confirms it, telling Damian he should do them later too. And now, in total silence, our hero sinks into a deep meditation, diving into memories of his past life and how he once depended on cheap magic formulas, and how he had to overcome them. He stole techniques from countless noble houses, nearly dying over and over again. He mastered their secret arts, but none of it was enough against the overwhelming power of Farron. This time, though, he decides to master something else entirely, the ultimate art of the Declan family itself, the legendary Heavenly Source art. He'd memorized it for research in his past life, and now he was going to make it his own. The moment he activates the technique, an intense heat surges through his body, and he discovers nasty impurities clogging his mana circles. He immediately unleashes a secret power, Mana Rain, an elite technique used to purify one's very bloodline. When the process is complete, he awakens to find that his magic circles are not just clean, but magnified, maybe even stronger than they were in his past life. But even with this power-up, he knows defeating the Declans is still a nearly impossible mission. But now, his chances are just a little bit better. And as a man who never gives up, he clings to his dream of revenge and freedom. The next day, Damian wakes up and is shocked to find his hair is brown. He realizes Aster secretly dyed it and changed his clothes so the Blandor family couldn't track him down. The kid then asks Aster what they're gonna do now. Our hero just cracks a grin and says, "It's time to crack some skulls." The scene then cuts to the very same kid who had jumped Aster. He's still a little groggy from a nap when his eyes fly open at the sight of our hero. He immediately asks where he's been, noticing he's all cleaned up. Then he spots Damian and, judging by their clothes, figures they've got money now. But to his absolute shock, our main character lands a heavy punch right in his gut, sending him to the ground. Aster calmly states that he remembers his face, and that's all that matters. Then he begins his countdown from 123 strikes. Just then, a couple of local kids hear the commotion, and soon a huge crowd gathers around them. Everyone is stunned to see what Aster is doing to the bully. With a huge grin plastered on his face, Aster scans the crowd. He recognizes a few faces and decides to see just how he can push things this time, with his new buddy Damian by his side. And just like that, the brawl kicks off. But Aster completely dominates the fight, taking down every opponent with fists shrouded in magical energy. While our hero shows off his skills, Damian just watches, totally in awe of his new friend. Aster decides it's a teaching moment, telling him that in situations like this, Damian needs to describe what he sees with style and excitement. So Damian, bursting with energy, yells that he's so amazing. Aster then asks if he understands why times people say he's amazing. Damian gets hyped watching the fight. He runs over to the first guy on the ground, offering to heal his injuries, but Aster stops him cold, grabbing him by the collar and asking how many hits the punk took. Without waiting for an answer, he grabs a piece of wood and delivers a hard smack to the kid's backside, making him stammer completely. Terrified and unable to remember the exact number, but Aster couldn't care less. He turns to Damian and says, "Now, it's your turn." With a huge smile, Damian begins to use his healing touch, but the injured kid starts screaming in agony, begging them to stop. Aster, completely unfazed, states that the debt isn't settled yet. There are still exactly 20 hits to go. The kid starts screaming that he's a demon, totally losing it. When it's finally over, one of the other boys approaches our hero. He's exhausted, but incredibly respectful as he greets him, and Aster can't help but feel a flash of pride. He'd completed his mission, 2,000 strikes delivered, 100 to each of them. It was one hell of a challenge, actually. The exhausted kids ask for permission to leave. Aster says, yeah, they can bounce now. But one of them points out that the main bully was one of their own and asks if he still wants them to just ditch him. Aster just glares at him, pissed off, and asks if he's pushing his luck. Not wanting another beatdown, the kids back off immediately, yelling, "Nope, we're leaving now," before running as far away as possible. From there, as Aster sighs, he realizes he's now homeless again. But then he feels a presence closing in fast. The movements are quick and precise, like a professional assassin. He realizes they're being hunted. It must be the Blandor family. With his mana this low, spells are out of the question. But then he remembers who he truly is. A mercenary, forged to survive in the most critical situations. He quickly concentrates every last drop of his energy, compressing it all into a single, devastating attack. He knows he only gets one shot. This has to be enough. He can feel his pursuer closing in fast. The moment the figure finally appears, our boy takes aim, ready to unleash his power. But he's completely stunned. This isn't an enemy. It's just an old man. The newcomer suddenly shouts, "Kneel before the young master, Damian." Damian is terrified, instantly recognizing the man as Alfredo. The butler cries out that he's been searching for him for so long, asking where he's been and what he's been doing. The poor butler hadn't slept a wink, worried sick about his young master. But Damian just struggles against him, yelling at the man to get lost. The old man refuses to let go. He vows he won't release him until he returns to his family, and demands to know why Damian ran away and what in the world happened. Our hero just stares at the chaotic scene, absolutely furious. After composing himself, Alfredo grabs Damian, apologizes for the commotion, and introduces himself as Alfredo, the butler of the Blandor family. He's just relieved to have finally found Damian. Aster replies coolly that his name is Aster. The butler completely ignores him and invites Damian to visit the Blandor residence. Our hero stops for a moment, hesitating. He knows nobles despise commoners, but in the end, he accepts the invitation, seeing this as a massive opportunity. After all, the Blandor family controls all access to Raisin City, which is home to the Zenith Academy and its legendary library. He considers the invitation a small detour from his main path. With a smirk, he looks at Damian and says that maybe the food at the Blandor estate will be worth it. A few hours later, they arrive at the imposing mansion. Alfredo notes how late it is and suggests they rest, handing them over to a maid named Linz. Linz says, "Understood," and with a dead serious expression, asks young Master Damian to please follow her. Damian, meanwhile, is a nervous wreck. When Linz tries to lead Damian away, the boy absolutely panics, screaming and struggling for his life. At the same time, in another part of the mansion, a door slams open. A woman, clearly the lady of the house, demands of Alfredo, "Where is Damian?" He replies that he found him in the gray zone and that he's already on his way. The woman reacts with pure fury, launching a powerful spell right at him that explodes violently in the air. Desperate, she demands to know if Damian is okay and promises severe consequences if anything has happened to him. But Alfredo quickly calms her down. He explains everything that happened. After hearing it all, she sighs, looking relieved for her son, and thanks the butler. Meanwhile, Alfredo thinks to himself that it was lucky for both her and whoever was foolish enough to touch the young master. After all, this woman was once known as the feared Blood Witch. He knows that with her ferocious temper, the outcome could have been so much worse. After he clarifies everything for her, the woman thanks him again. Then Alfredo mentions something strange, about young Master Damian's friend, the boy named Aster. He explains that the boy sensed his presence and prepared to fight him before he even appeared. He says Aster had a mana bullet ready to be fired at a moment's notice. Deeply impressed, the woman acknowledges the boy's talent, especially for someone from the gray zone. Based on this, Alfredo asks her for a small favor. Later, he finds Aster again and makes an unexpected proposal. He wants the young man to become his successor. Alfredo speaks with unshakable confidence, absolutely certain the boy would never refuse. He explains that this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for someone from the gray zone to gain wealth and prestige. But to the old man's shock, Aster simply gives him an ice-cold stare and flatly replies, "I'm not interested." As the old man stands there in disbelief, wondering if he heard correctly, Damian shows up and asks his friend what he means. So Aster thanks Alfredo for the offer, but says he prefers things as they are. He calms Damian down, adding that he is truly grateful for the thought. Alfredo, still stunned, asks himself why. Then it hits him. He thinks to himself, this is arrogance. Because he was born with nothing in the gray zone and learned magic through raw talent alone, he sees himself as being above others. And so, Alfredo begins to speak, saying he understands, and reveals that he also came from a common family. He was arrogant when he was young, before he realized just how vast the world really was. Aster, however, looks completely bored, thinking this whole lecture is a waste of his time. But Alfredo continues, saying, right now, you probably think you can do anything, maybe even conquer the world. Aster replies that he doesn't think that way. But the butler just gets more irritated and starts comparing him to the goblins of the valley, creatures ignorant of the dangers beyond. But Aster just retorts that he wouldn't be a goblin, he'd be more like an Ivern. That was the last straw for Alfredo, who decides to show him just how vast the world is. He wants Aster to understand exactly how terrifying this world can be. And so he leads Aster to a massive hall, revealing rows of young apprentices who quickly salute the head butler. Alfredo asks for Aster's opinion, saying that everyone here is a talented member of the Blandor family, all of them the same age as him. The boy observes them in silence and has to admit they are indeed impressive. But as their eyes meet, he thinks with pure sarcasm, all I see here are goblins. Alfredo asked if he would accept the offer now, promising that he could shine like them, or perhaps even brighter. But Aster replies without hesitation, I don't like to shine. This provoked Alfredo deeply. But at that moment, from among the apprentices, a boy named Weston stepped forward with a mocking smile. He told Alfredo that if the boy had any sense of value, he wouldn't have refused. The fact that he did proves he doesn't understand the weight of the position, nor the talent present in the hall. Because of this, Weston offered to give Aster a demonstration himself and suggested a duel. Alfredo considered the idea bold, but ultimately agreed. And Aster, realizing he had become a nuisance to everyone, nodded instantly, making him even more terrified. But in that moment, Alan stepped in, reminding Damian that Sam would chew him out if he got involved, which made him basically back down. Just then, Alfredo ordered the trainer to start the duel. The man, looking completely defeated, simply obeyed the command, as Alan told Damian that she would be back soon and asked him not to interfere. He shot her a smile, letting her know he understood. With that, the trainer approached them and began explaining the rules for the turn-based combat. But Aster just scoffed in his mind, thinking this was more like a slaughter than a training match. The trainer droned on, saying the duel would only end when one side surrendered. His opponent sneered, calling him a stray mutt, blinded by luck, and promising he'd be crushed. After that trash talk, the trainer gave the signal to begin, and the opponent started to advance. But Aster reacted in a flash, launching a direct attack on Weston and landing a heavy blow to his chest, making the apprentice cry out in pure, disbelieving pain. Meanwhile, our boy declared that he would be the one teaching them a lesson, forming a mana bullet and saying the first lesson was simple. Sometimes the smallest peppers are the hottest. Seeing this, Weston instantly recognized the technique, mocking it as basic mana manipulation, totally useless in a real fight. But Aster just offered him a second lesson. Never judge someone too quickly. In the next instant, he fired his mana bullet, which exploded with insane force, sending 5 apprentices flying through the air. With a calm gaze, he remarked that the world is a big, harsh place before slamming a fist into Weston's face. He said he could teach them all the lessons a loser could ever need, and that they should study up. Weston, on the other hand, was completely stunned and enraged, screaming that he was a madman and that his power wasn't magic. But Aster made a lightning-fast move while saying, oh yes, it was magic known as body magic. Watching from the side, the trainer was in absolute shock as he saw Aster demolish his opponents, one by one. He analyzed the technique carefully and realized the mana bullet had been compressed 3 or 4 times. A shiver ran down his spine, imagining what would happen if that blast had been aimed at him. It would have been incredibly dangerous. But deep down, Alfredo couldn't help but admire the kid's monstrous innate control over mana. Suddenly, he sensed a familiar presence and immediately turned, surprised to see Lady Bianca arriving. The trainer, however, just sighed in relief, believing she was there to save them from this massive mess. Bianca surveyed the training grounds, now a scene of chaos and injured students, and demanded to know what just happened. A hesitant apprentice stammered that this was just a test. Meanwhile, her ladyship shot a cold glare around the field, clearly doubting the excuse, and asking with a hint of sarcasm if this was what he called a test. Without wasting another second, she ordered Alfredo to gather the apprentices and leave, then told Damian and Aster to return to their rooms. All Aster could think was what a shame. The fun was over. But Lady Bianca wasn't finished. She turned her attention directly to the trainer, Ronfit, and with a single word, she fired him, leaving the man with his head bowed in silence. She then turned to Alfredo, telling him he'd gone too far. But Alfredo quickly apologized, saying he was prepared for any punishment. But the lady, instead of scolding him, changed the subject and asked for the details of the duel. She then asked if Damian had helped Aster, but Alfredo denied it, explaining that the boy was shockingly skilled in combat. He added that the mana bullet Aster used had been compressed 3 or 4 times, which led Lady Bianca to deduce he had completely absurd and excellent mana control. She couldn't even hide how impressed she was. Curious, she asked if he really defeated 5 apprentices with just 1 bullet. Alfredo confirmed that he had, and that Aster had won all by himself. She then asked about the proposal Alfredo had made to the boy, and when she found out Aster had refused, a faint smile appeared on her face. His refusal actually served her own interests, so she decided to re-evaluate Aster personally. She then ordered for him to be brought to her office, and sometime later, the scene cuts to her study. When our boy was called to meet her, she welcomed him with pure elegance, inviting him to sit. Damian was right there by her, sighed, munching on some food. Aster told her he'd been informed of her summons, but he remained perfectly calm, not showing a hint of nerves. Lady Bianca, then, gestured to a small box on the table, explaining she'd heard about the gift Alfredo had promised him. That jogged Aster's memory. But he never expected the lady herself to prepare something so quickly. She then told him to open the box. Inside was a high-quality elixir, a rare and valuable item that left Aster completely stunned. But his guard went up instantly. He knew that gifts this generous almost always came with strings attached. Lady Bianca noticed his hesitation, but she quickly reassured him, saying the elixir was a reward for helping Damian and an apology for what happened in the duel. Still, Aster remained suspicious and asked if drinking the elixir would bind him to the Blandor family, but she said no. He asked if it was poisoned, and she assured him it wasn't. Yet he pressed on, asking for one last confirmation that there were no hidden conditions, and Lady Bianca confirmed it again. Only then did Aster thank her and accept the gift. For him, this was definitely an unexpected win. But before he could, relax, Lady Bianca said she had another proposal. Aster sighed internally. He should have known. She offered him a scholarship so he could attend the academy along with Damian. She explained that Damian was supposed to have started his studies last year but had refused to go, so she wanted to ask for Aster's help, since Damian looks up to him, and our hero knew that was true. He could see Lady Bianca's difficult position. If she tried to force Damian, the kid would just run away again. He thought for a moment that studying at the academy was an excellent opportunity, and the connections he could make would be priceless. But he also felt like he was being dragged deeper into the Blandor family's drama. In the end, he told her he would think about the offer. Lady Bianca agreed and asked him to let her know his decision. But just as he was leaving, she called out to him one last time and asked why he had refused Alfredo's proposal. Aster just smirked and said his knees were too precious to bend for anyone, leaving Lady Bianca completely surprised by his response. Just behind the door, in another corner, Alfredo wondered what kind of audacious answer that was. Later that night, after getting the elixir, Aster sat down and began to absorb its energy. He was amazed by the massive boost to his mana and wondered if its high efficiency was thanks to his new body. Normally, absorbing spiritual power causes adverse reactions, but he felt nothing, and it was more effective than he ever imagined. After that, his thoughts turned to the academy. After mulling it over, he made his decision. There were a lot of advantages to enrolling, and the main one was the ease of finding a sponsor. But even so, Aster had a strong feeling he was walking into a trap and decided to take a walk to clear his head. But just as he was about to leave, a young man with platinum blonde hair stopped him in his tracks and asked if he was Aster. Looking at his face, he figured the guy must be from a branch family, and feeling annoyed by him, denied that his name was Aster. The guy looked surprised but wasn't deterred and continued with a bunch of sarcastic remarks, criticizing his gray hair and his eyes. Aster's unnerving stare. Our irritated boy calmly retorts that his hair color changes with the light, then asks with false innocence how his eyes could possibly be uncomfortable. Just like that, the man backs down, admitting Aster's eyes seem kind and apologizing for the mistake before leaving. But in that instant, Alfredo rushes over to Aster, begging for forgiveness and saying he couldn't sleep. Aster thinks resentfully that he shouldn't be groveling like this to a mere butler, but the platinum-haired punk spins around and starts shouting that he was right all along, declaring that Aster's dead goblin gaze is definitely not normal. And so, Aster calmly confirms his identity. Absolutely furious, the kid accuses him of lying and whispers a threat to kill him right there. But a single sharp glance from Alfredo silences him. The young master starts to back away, demanding Aster meet him in the magic hall later to correct his bad behavior. Aster just looks at him and agrees without a single worry. After the kid storms off, Alfredo asks if there's a problem, but Aster just smiles, saying there's nothing to worry about. Thinking the situation actually works in his favor, he turns to Alfredo and asks to see the lady of the palace. A few minutes later, Lady Bianca welcomes him to her office, immediately asking if he's decided on her proposal. With a confident smirk, Aster confirms he will enroll. His quick decision surprises Lady Bianca, but she's pleased, telling him to make himself at home and thanking him before she leaves. As soon as Aster is gone, Alfredo enters the room. A very happy Lady Bianca informs him that Aster accepted the offer. Alfredo, on the other hand, can't hide his excitement, gushing that it's what he expected from a boy with such passion and a burning flame in his eyes. He starts laying out his plan for Lady Bianca, explaining how the first semester will be a breeze for Aster since the family is covering his expenses. But by the second semester, the kid will struggle to pay the academy's steep fees. Alfredo predicts Aster will become desperate, and that's when he'll swoop in as his personal sponsor. Hearing this, Lady Bianca quickly cuts him off, telling him he's being too loud. Embarrassed, Alfredo just apologizes and scurries away. After he leaves, Bianca reflects on his plan, finding it incredibly naive. But she realizes Alfredo's confidence comes from being trapped by a very similar method himself. In the end, she pities him, calling him a poor soul. Meanwhile, in another part of the mansion, the magic hall, where the boy from the secondary branch was waiting. Upon arriving, Aster is met by a strange, fully hooded man who asks why he's come. Aster hesitates, realizing he doesn't even know the kid's name, but the hooded figure seems to be expecting him. After a greeting, he leads him to a door, warning him to watch his head. The moment Aster opens the door, he understands the warning as a storm of paper flies right at him. After the dust settles, someone right in front of him asks, "So you're Aster? It's a pleasure to meet you." This man with platinum hair and sharp eyes introduces himself as Eden von Blondor and asks if he came to see his little brother. Aster thinks, "Little brother?" He realizes the little punk called his older brother for backup. Our hero recalls his past experiences infiltrating various academies. Mages study magic, but they all basically become glorified pen holders. They all have certain traits. First, messy hair. From pulling it out so often, it stops growing. And from there, they evolve through several stages. In stage 1, they deny their hair is falling out and wear a hood to cover it. In stage 2, they give up and accept their fate. And in stage 3, they shave their heads completely. The final stage is the point where they try to make the impossible possible, creating a magic spell to grow hair, a feat no one has ever achieved. But this guy in front of him is completely different. He starts by saying he'd like to apologize first, wondering if his brother acted out simply because he's the younger sibling. But he's sure the young master's guest wouldn't make such a rude mistake. Through it all, Aster shows no reaction, thinking that this guy is incredible and shockingly young. He asks Eden if he happens to work at the Magic Academy. Eden says yes. He's currently serving as the vice dean, which completely stuns Aster. A vice dean this young? A prestigious family like the Blanders would never put someone from a collateral branch in that position without a reason. It means he has the skills to back it up. Eden seems surprised by Aster's stare and remarks that young Master Aster is a bit different. Not like the typical rebellious youths from noble families. Our boy just asks, "Is that so?" He remembers that mages from this place are supposed to have dark circles under their eyes, so how does this guy not only lack them but also have a smile like that? This man has to be a different species entirely. Still, he senses a strange compatibility with him, so Aster plays along, asking if he was encouraged to enter Xenon Academy and congratulates him. Without missing a beat, the cheerful boy just thanks him. Eden begins saying it will be a great opportunity with much to learn there. In fact, he also graduated from Xenon Academy, specifically the 145th class. After hearing this, Aster wonders if he's just trying to feel him out by talking about the academy. As if reading his mind, Eden apologizes, saying that because he's entering Xenon, he got a little carried away. He was just making small talk. Then he asks if they should get back to the main point. Aster asks, "What main point?" Eden says that first, there's something he needs to confirm. He asks if, by chance, Aster would risk his life for a friend. The question shocks our hero, who wonders what on earth this guy is talking about. Eden continues that this is what concerns him, the Blandor reputation. And if Aster can risk his life, he will give him this book, and then he sees the cover. Could it be? He wonders. Is that book really the secret of the Blandor family? The legendary grimoire of healing light magic? That morning in the greenhouse, the lady of the house tends to her garden, lost in thought. As she prunes the plants, she thinks that ever since Damian went to the academy, a major headache has been resolved. That's one less thing for her to worry about. She thinks about Aster. That boy is a great friend, and his talent is impressive. His personality is a bit strange, and even if Alfredo calls him a little punk sometimes, he does have a shameless side. Everyone is like that at his age. But what she liked most was that even after learning where Damian came from, his attitude didn't change one bit. He is definitely different. That's why he deserves to be by Damian's side. But because of that, he also doesn't belong anywhere. He's like a bird let out of its cage, and there are many ways to kill those who get too close. She needs to think of something in the time she has. For Damian's sake, she cannot lose someone with so much talent. Back in the hall, our boy stares at the book. He's still wondering if it's really the Blandor family's secret. He realizes this could be a trap and looks up at Eden into those clear, transparent eyes. Maybe that's why he can't read him. Whether a person is good or evil, their eyes should show some emotion. But he's like a perfect assassin. There's no emotion at all. In other words, it's like he's wearing a mask so flawless that even he might not know his true self. And so, Aster tells him this isn't something that can be taken lightly. He can't afford a careless answer just because of what's in front of him. Our boy says he'll give his answer, and that he hates it. This greatly surprises Eden. And our hero feels a surge of confidence, thinking he has no reason to. Uncomfortable, being in the same boat and all. So Ed tells him, if there's something he wants to know, he should just ask. If it's possible, he'll do it. But if not, he'll flat out refuse. Ed's expression turned deadly serious, warning that just listening could be a death sentence. And if Asher heard his secret and refused to cooperate, Ed might just have to kill him. But Asher just stared him down, pissed, and shot back. Then just kill me. You only live once, after all. Though he thought to himself, well, this is actually my second life. In that instant, Ed's rage flared. He shot up from the table, unleashing his power as the entire room began to tremble. He was trying to intimidate Asher into submission, but Asher didn't even flinch, just meeting his glare with one of his own. After a tense moment, Ed just smiled and admitted that he really couldn't bring himself to do it. He declared that young Master Asher had passed the test, so he'd get straight to the point. The truth was, he needed someone he could trust, and more importantly, someone who wasn't from the Blandor family. After hearing this, our boy thought to himself that he'd almost decked him with his full strength. Ed continued, saying he has high expectations, since everyone born in the gray zones is basically the same. Young Master Asher is just a kid, after all. He shouldn't have a good eye for people. So why would he, a man from a family with such a pristine reputation, let someone from the gray zone get close to his own son? Ed figured there had to be something more going on. And luckily, our boy concluded, his little brother just happened to pick a fight with a guest. He asks if that's the angle. But Ed dodged, asking if he preferred a casual or formal explanation. He told him to pick one, but Asher just told him to forget it. Finally, Ed admitted that a perfect excuse had just fallen into his lap. The younger brother and a guest got into a fight, so the older brother steps in to mediate. But our guy was wondering, what does he mean, luckily? He questioned why the academy's vice-rector would use his brother as an excuse to drag him into a conflict. He demanded to know what he really wanted. Ed laid it out. It was a tough situation to get involved in without an internal conflict. The Blandor family is too tight-knit, which meant he was constantly being watched by the Declan family. Our hero froze. The Declan family? He asked Ed for clarification, who reminded him that he didn't care if he died. So, Ed decided to be brutally honest, even if he had no real intention of killing him. The truth is, he was currently researching the Declan family's celestial origin magic, a revelation that completely shocked our hero. Ed was about to continue, but he noticed his reaction. He realized that Asher clearly knew about the celestial origin magic. It was a secret technique only Declan descendants could learn, but Ed had managed to acquire it through great effort. But our boy quickly cut him off, telling him to wait a second. He asked how he wasn't already dead for even looking into it, and how he was possibly still alive. And if he was researching it with someone from the Blandor family, why hadn't he tried to find a way to destroy it? But Ed simply said he didn't know much about it, and that the Declan family was on a whole other level. He confessed that if they knew he was researching their magic, even the vice-rector would be executed. He admitted that, at first, he studied it with the intent to destroy it, but then asked if Asher could understand. The celestial origin magic is the root of all Declan's secret arts. He imagined a way to enhance this secret art that was already considered perfect on its own. He just couldn't bring himself to destroy it. He asked if Asher, in his shoes, could understand his feelings. Asher's mind raced. This guy wasn't just crazy. He was a complete, certified lunatic. And just like that, he confirmed Ed was totally insane. And the best place to conduct this research was on his family's own territory. Suddenly, everything from his past life started to connect. He realized the real reason the Declan family had targeted the Blendors was because of Ed's research into a new technique. Ed saw its massive potential and decided to make his move. Across the table, Ed noticed Asher's silence and asked if he had any regrets. But our boy ignored him and got back to the main point, wanting to know why he was the one being approached. Ed explained that he hadn't told his family anything about the research yet, but he suspected the Declans might have planted a spy and that someone was tracking his work. He figured they probably released the incomplete solution as a trap. Then Ed started laughing, admitting he was the one who leaked a piece of the formula to mislead them. Asher asked why he didn't just side with the Declans, but Ed replied that he had his personal reasons and that he needed Asher for a secret job, specifically because he had no ties to the Blendor family. He explained the research was a collaboration, but he'd hit a wall. He asked Asher to take a thesis to Professor Perrin at Xenon Academy and promised him a handsome reward. In exchange, he would offer him the healing light spell. Asher, however, saw an invaluable opportunity. He accepted on the spot but decided to raise the stakes, proposing to receive the healing spell immediately as collateral. And when the new formula for the Declan magic was complete, he wanted that too. He justified it by saying this would make them true partners. In the same boat, an all-or-nothing deal. Ed found him bold, but incredibly impressive. He recognized the simple, clear logic in his demand. After a moment of thought, Ed agreed, saying the name of the technique didn't matter. He told Asher he didn't have the foundation to use a new version yet, but promised to deliver it when it was ready. But he added one condition: until the thesis was completely finished. He might need Asher's help again. He expected him to support the work. Asher immediately accepted, as long as it was related to the thesis. He took the papers and joked with Ed that he couldn't read them. For a split second, Ed was paralyzed, but Asher quickly admitted it was a joke, causing Ed to grumble that he was seriously annoying. With that settled, Asher asked about Professor Perrin and if he could be trusted. Ed smiled, explaining they always competed for first place at the academy, even as assistant professors. But Perrin was always one step ahead, even after Ed returned to the Blendor family. Asher thought to himself that this world was truly miserable, filled with psychos like Ed. Later, back in his room, Dia asked why he kept so many things in his subspace. Among the books, Asher found a letter sealed with red wax. Opening it, he read the address, "To my dear Asher." He scoffed at the word dear. He saw it was from Ed, explaining that these were the magic texts he should study for the future. Ed had even written out the proper learning order. It was all so Asher could have an intellect worthy of his status. Asher stared at the pile of 132 books, not counting the healing spell and the new thesis, and admitted it was a truly wonderful gift. He realized Ed was definitely a genius, able to map out a gradual learning path from basic to advanced, but also a complete madman. Still, he had to give him credit. It wasn't half bad. He sat down to write and started making a list of sponsors for his future in the tower. The first name on the list, Ed von Blendor. He understood that the 132 books weren't just isolated volumes. They were a complete body of knowledge, capable of building a solid foundation for any magic apprentice. Before, he just wanted to hoard books. But now he understood that this collection held the true identity of the tower, a place that offers knowledge to all who seek it. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Ed was thinking about Asher. Initially, his plan was to just hand over the thesis and get rid of him if he was useless. But now, he found the boy fascinating. He remembered Asher's audacity in the face of a death threat. He realized Asher truly did not fear his own death, and that genuinely amused him, making him different from all the others he called pigs. He felt like he had finally found someone on his level, someone with the same goals, someone who actually craves results. After a few days, when it was time to leave for the academy, the maid came to tell Asher that he needed to get ready. All they needed was to sign a few forms. No entrance exams for them. They were officially in. She mentioned the new uniform would look sharp on him, and he just gave a quick thanks before heading out. In the carriage, Damian and Lady Bianca were waiting. Damian was buzzing with excitement, telling him to hurry up. Before they left, Lady Bianca pulled him aside, asking him to take care of himself. She hoped he would achieve what he truly desired, reminding him this was a massive opportunity. Asher just smiled back at her, echoing her words, "What I truly want." And he made up his mind right then he was going to get it. Thinking of Xenon Academy, the greatest academy on the Eastern continent, he planned to win over every single sponsor with a confident smirk. Now, sitting in the carriage, he eagerly awaited his new destiny. During the ride, Asher got completely absorbed in the books Wind had given him. It only took a few pages for him to realize Wind was an extraordinary magic researcher. Based on his readings, he started to grasp the basic principles of magic. The fundamentals were simple: but their interpretations could branch out infinitely. He used water as an example. To some, it symbolizes life, to others, destruction. It all came down to your point of view. Aster then realized that every great family had built its own form of magic from a unique perspective on the same foundations. By the time he finished reading the magic texts he reached a major conclusion. The curriculum Wynne prepared was directly linked to the celestial principles of the Declan family. His thoughts, however, were suddenly shattered by Damian. He called him his friend and told him to look out the window. Full of excitement, he yelled that they had finally arrived. As soon as Aster looked up, he saw the imposing, vast building of Xenon Academy before him. The maid traveling with them said the carriage could only go this far. According to the teachings of the founder, Joe the Sage, during the entrance exam period, it doesn't matter if you're noble or not, you have to enter on foot, so this is where they said their goodbyes. She hoped he would learn many things at Xenon Academy, wishing them both luck and wisdom. The moment the carriage left, they started walking, and Damian grabbed Aster's arm, telling him to hurry. He mentioned, a bit worried, that she had said they'd be late and might run out of seats, but Aster thought that was completely absurd. After all, an entrance ceremony isn't some village theater where seating is first come, first served. But then it hit him. Lance probably just said that so Damian wouldn't mess around. So he decided to just let it go. When they finally entered the Great Hall, they saw the place was already packed. Damian was shocked by the sheer number of students. He commented that Lance was right, and if they'd been any later, there really wouldn't have been any seats left. But Aster had his doubts and checked a piece of paper that had their assigned seat numbers. Class M3, seats 11 and 12. Even so, Damian pointed to some empty spots and wanted to sit down immediately, but Aster told him to wait a second. He wondered how the same kid who didn't even want to come to the academy could be so excited now. However, before they could settle in, Damian accidentally bumped into a long-haired student, who immediately got seriously pissed off. This punk, with an arrogant stance, angrily snarled, "What the hell is wrong with you?" But Aster rushed over to Damian and helped him up, asking if he was okay. Damian, still on the floor, said he wasn't hurt and quickly apologized to the student, saying he wasn't watching where he was going. Just as the two were about to leave, that arrogant guy stopped them dead in their tracks. He turned on them furiously, complaining that some spit had gotten on his clothes. When Aster saw it, he figured it must have been from his friend Damian. Calmly sizing the guy up, he knew that in a situation like this, Damian would take the lead and apologize, and he'd try to fix the problem. And sure enough, Damian started apologizing while trying to wipe the guy's clothes clean. But the more he wiped, the bigger the mess he made. Of course, he only made the situation 1,000 times worse, which made the dude even more furious. And that's when Aster realized a fight was inevitable. Right after that, unable to contain his rage, the guy threw a punch at Damian, telling him to get out of his face. But before he could follow through, Aster intervened, grabbing his fist firmly. "You're making a mistake," he said, suggesting he stop right there. The noble student asked with total disdain who he thought he was, but Aster replied firmly, "I'm Damian's friend, and I won't just stand by and watch this." The arrogant punk just scoffed. "You seem like a loyal friend," he mocked, "but you'll soon regret this foolish choice." But Aster just sighed, knowing his plan to make friends on the first day had just gone up in smoke. Cracking his knuckles, he decided to forget that idea. At that moment, it seemed his opponent preferred to settle things with his fists instead of words. And because of all the commotion, they'd attracted a lot of attention. Others began to circle them, curious, waiting for the battle to start. Some recognized the long-haired guy as a member of the Dunlap family, and the rumors started spreading like wildfire. Most were betting that the Dunlap student would come out on top. But then, a student who seemed to have some authority pushed through the crowd and chewed the others out for just standing around and watching. But one of the students asked if he wasn't going to stop the fight. The guy immediately shot that down, ordering them to make some room, because that's the only way to have a real fight. He told the mage from the Dunlap family to raise his magic barrier around the area. This little mess had just turned into a public spectacle, and bets started flying. The long-haired kid's name was Aster Dunlap. As a crowd formed, Aster just smirked, sizing the guy up. And this Aster began his grand introduction. He was the second son of the proud Dunlap family, and he demanded to know Aster's name. Aster calmly replied that unlike him, he wasn't from some great bloodline. He was just a passerby. Hearing that, the arrogant punk grinned instantly. He said Aster's background didn't matter, but fighting in such a small space would put a mage at a disadvantage. Faking generosity, he said he'd let Aster have the first shot. The whole situation was completely ridiculous. Aster retorted that for someone who hated to talk, this brat had a seriously sharp tongue. He asked if maybe, just maybe, he was scared. That comment set him off for good. In a flash, Aster attacked, throwing a powerful punch. Aster, however, just kept that smirk on his face and told him, "Think again." The kid got nervous as our boy lunged forward, declaring that he wasn't just times a mage. A devastating punch landed square on his face, sending him flying. As Aster saw the fist coming, he was certain no magic student could ever shake him with a simple punch. But he was completely stunned by the sheer weight of Asher's blow. The impact made him stagger, wondering where all that strength came from. He called Asher a scoundrel, shocked by the power he held. While he was trying to process what happened, he was caught off guard by a healing spell. Looking to the side, he realized it was Damian who was healing him. But that just confused him more. He couldn't understand why Asher's own companion was helping him. Asher just gave a slight smile and said that noble families really were on another level. And taking advantage of Aster's distraction, he landed another perfect blow, scolding him for not concentrating. He found himself in a ridiculous situation, where one guy attacked him and the other healed him, and both acted like this was completely normal. As Damian kept casting healing spells, Aster felt his heart start to race, calling out, "Two absolute lunatics." For a second, he just wanted to pass out right there and end this living nightmare. For the first time in his life, he wondered, was he actually afraid? But the crowd erupted, screaming his name. They demanded he fight back. They called him the pride of House Deklan, the star of the Eastern continent, the hope of every martial artist out there. They begged him to end this now, to show them the true power of his bloodline. Fueled by their taunts, he completely lost it. He exploded in pure rage, screaming, "How dare a mere mage look down on me?" He threw a furious punch right at Aster, but the blow just sliced through empty air. Aster had dodged it with ease, so he gathered all his strength and unleashed a devastating attack that created a massive explosion. Seeing this, the crowd went wild. They screamed that this was the real Aster Dant. But as his strike landed, he felt it connect with something, only to be shocked by how light the contact felt. Totally confused, he looked up and saw Aster being launched into the air, only to land gracefully on his feet. After a quick roll, Aster stood back up. He calmly brushed the dust from his clothes. Aster was completely stunned. He couldn't understand how this was even possible. He started screaming in pure terror. What the hell was going on? He charged wildly toward Aster, ready to attack again, but Aster just glanced to the side and saw Damon. Damon looked way too happy. Aster realized his friend must still be healing him. Okay, time to end this in a single blow. He quickly thought about what technique to use, and the perfect solution came to mind. Yeah, this should work, he thought. He channeled power into his hand, remembering a technique he developed with his old comrades back in his past life. It used the collision of magic particles to extract raw energy. It consumed mana, but it wasn't exactly magic, and it definitely wasn't a martial art. He saw the long-haired punk rushing right at him. This move, he thought, was an application of a technique that exploited magical properties. The collision style. He threw a devastating punch, intercepting Aster's attack. The impact was so powerful the barrier around them started to crack. Shrapnel flew everywhere, injuring some of the students. But when everyone finally opened their eyes, they were left speechless by the scene before them. Both fighters were locked in a combat stance, completely and utterly frozen in place. Then, to everyone's absolute shock, Aster sank to his knees before collapsing face first into the dirt. But our boy was still standing, barely even scratched. The entire crowd was stunned into absolute silence. They just stared at the outcome of the fight. To celebrate his victory, our main character raised a hand. He told them all to clap, to shout, to celebrate, because he was the winner here. And just like that, seeing how badass Aster was, they started cheering that he was incredible. They wondered if he was even a mage at all. And just what kind of fighting style was that? Just then, Damon called out to his friend. Vaughn shouted, asking if they'd won. Aster just smirked and said, "Yep, we won." All while Damon was jumping around like a little kid. But hidden in the back of the crowd, someone else was watching. A guy with long hair wondered to himself, how could a magic student fight like that? How truly vulgar, he thought. Suddenly, to the student's surprise, an adult pushed through the crowd. "Out of the way," he commanded. Who dared to start a fight? On the very first day of the entrance ceremony, he went from student to student, demanding to know who was responsible. Aster realized he'd caused a pretty big problem. But whatever. He was cool with it. After all, he was a mercenary. He knew plenty of ways to get out of this mess. But just as he was about to slip away, his friend Damon stepped forward. "It wasn't them," he said. "Actually, it was us. We started the fight." Damon pointed right at himself and Aster. The inspector walked over to them. "Was it you two?" "Yes, sir," Damon said. "We're the ones who started it." With Aster Dant still unconscious on the ground, all three of them were dragged off to the director's office. And now, inside that very office, Damon and Aster were called forward. They both admitted to it. The professor sighed and said, since they confessed, he'd let it slide this time without any penalties. Besides, the other student didn't seem too badly injured, but I'll be keeping a close eye on you two from now on. As soon as they left the office, Aster felt a wave of relief. At least the entrance ceremony hadn't started yet. The two of them started looking for their seats. All around them, students were whispering, "Isn't that the guy who beat a martial artist with a body like that? How can a magic student even fight with his fists? Seriously, that was so impressive." Meanwhile, right behind Aster, Damon was happily waving to all his new fans. "Wow, a lot of people are looking at us," Damon said. Aster just thought, "Great, I'm practically a celebrity now." Finally, after wandering for a bit, they found their seats. Right in front of them, Damon's face lit up. "Look, it seems like your friend saved us a spot," he said. "Your friend is so amazing." Aster, not wanting to burst his bubble, just played along. "Yeah, looks like it." And finally, up on the auditorium stage, the Academy's director began his speech. He droned on about following the first director's teachings, how the Academy must do this and that, and then this other thing, and then another. It was a super long speech. It was so boring, Damon just passed out. Aster, on the other hand, was kind of impressed. How could anyone give such a long speech while standing the whole time? But then, our main character noticed something. It was his friend, fast asleep right next to him. He thought it was pretty funny and innocent. He even wiped away some of Damon's drool with his hand. But a second later, Aster spotted something else. An assistant was whispering to the director, saying there was something urgent he needed to see right away. As they spoke, all the students watched curiously. After getting the details, the director nodded. "All right," he said, then apologized to the students. He explained that something urgent had come up, and he'd have to end his speech there. But the ceremony would continue as planned. And after he gave a little wave, another professor took the stage. She marched right up to the microphone and yelled, "Everyone, pay attention." Her shout startled every student who'd fallen asleep, including Damon, who jolted awake. She introduced herself as Solera and said she would be continuing the ceremony in place of the director, who was unable to finish his speech due to an unforeseen issue. To continue the ceremony, she announced, "We will begin with the freshman oath. First, I will call the representative of the Magic Division, Dahlia J. DeKnight." A girl stood up from her seat and walked onto the stage. The other students started whispering. "Is she from the DeKnight family? Did she actually have to take the entrance exam? Maybe her skills weren't good enough on their own." But another student shot that down. "Think before you speak. She's the third daughter of the head of the family. If her skills weren't top tier, do you really think the DeKnight family would have let her take the exam at all?" Watching her up on the stage, our main character was intrigued. He remembered Dahlia. If the Declan family were the most powerful mages in the East, then the DeKnight family was the second most powerful. And within that family, Dahlia grew up to become the future representative of the eternal second-place holders, House Deklan. Back in the day, she was plenty capable. But even up until his retirement, he'd never once gotten any help from her. That was probably because they didn't get along at all. You could say they were practically enemies. Still, it was good to see she was enrolling this year. He wondered if he saw wrong, or if she was actually looking at him. But in the end, whatever. He just looked away. But in that moment, Dahlia tripped on the stairs, face planting on the ground. Meanwhile, our boy couldn't think about anything but Professor Perron. He needed to know who this guy was. As various professors introduced themselves, he kept wondering when Perron would finally show up. Finally, after a few minutes, a new professor took the stage. He greeted the students, saying he was Perron, and that he'd be in charge of the magical principles of magiology class. Aster thought to himself that he expected him to look like Ain, but they were completely different. Then again, Ain wore a knight's mask in public, so he figured he shouldn't judge him too quickly. After all the professors were introduced, she announced the end of the introductions and concluded the entrance ceremony. They were told to follow the staff to their assigned dorms, but right next to Aster, Damian was still fast asleep. Our boy nudged him to wake him up. Damian asked if it was over, but Aster said, "Nope, they're gonna catch you sleeping and expel you today, so we're going home," he deadpanned, which instantly sent Damian into a panic. Staring at our boy, he started screaming in total desperation. If his mom found out, he'd be so dead. After a while of explaining and calming Damian down, our boy finally headed toward his dorm. He stopped in front of a door, wondering if this was it. But as soon as he opened it, he noticed 2 beds. He commented that the academy was pretty impressive. The box on the bed must hold all the supplies he'll need. They give one to every student, so he started putting his materials away. Along with the clothes, he noticed that even the smallest items screamed high status. But just then, to Asher's surprise, the door opened. When he looked up, he saw his new roommate. And unbelievably, it was the same guy from the entrance ceremony. He remembered his name was Pike, but wondered why he looked so ticked off. This Pike guy seemed a little arrogant and just said that neither of them would accommodate the other. He didn't care what Aster did, and he could stay up late if he wanted, but he preferred they stay out of each other's business. That included talking. After saying his piece, our boy just stared at him, surprised. The guy got right in his face, demanding to know if he understood. Trying to put some fear into Aster, the punk asked why he wasn't responding. Meanwhile, Aster just found him bold. Everything about this guy was making him curious. They said he was one of the best, and he wanted to know just how good he really was. So, with a lightning-fast move, he lunged at him. It surprised the kid, who yelled, "What are you doing?" And right away, Aster could tell he wasn't half bad. Even the way he drew his sword, Aster was sure it hadn't hit a single thing. Yeah, he was pretty good. But just then, from outside the room, Damian started yelling for Aster, telling him to hurry up. Our hero gave a satisfied smirk and asked, "Anything else? If not, I'm gonna head out for a bit." Patting him on the shoulder, he told him to do whatever he wanted, but in return, "Don't complain if I'm making noise after midnight." And with that, he left the dorm. He found Damian waving at him, who immediately asked who his roommate was. Aster replied that he had no clue who he was. But Damian shot back, "What do you mean, no clue? You really don't know who that is?" Our boy just said, "Of course not. He was way too busy to know who everyone else was." Damian then said, anyway, he wanted to check out the academy with Alice. She said there were a ton of things to see here, and that they had to see everything on the first day, but he needed to go with a friend. Meanwhile, Aster was thinking to himself that Xeno Academy is huge. That's why they tell you to get familiar with it so you don't get lost. He figured it was worth his time. But beyond that, something was bothering him. It wasn't as strong as in his past life, but his senses were on high alert. He could spot the Declans, or at least the mercenaries working for them, and he began to take a silent count of how many there were. So, he started walking with Damian, counting every single mercenary. After walking for a long time, as late afternoon set in, Damian said this lake was so cool and that he had nothing like it back home. Meanwhile, Aster thought this was exhausting. It felt like he'd turned into some kind of babysitter. This must be why Alice pawned him off on him. He told Damian to just have one built for himself. The kid asked, "What do you mean?" Aster explained he just needed to dig a hole and fill it with water, then he could have one too. With sparkling eyes, Damian realized it was true. He was going to ask for one bigger than this to be built at his house. Meanwhile, back at her mansion, Alice suddenly got a chill. But back to the boys, Damian asked what he should name his lake. Our boy told him he could call it blood, sweat, and tears. Back at the mansion, Alice felt another shiver run down her spine. At the academy, Damian noticed something odd as he stared at the statue of a mage. He announced he'd have one of those made for him too, but it would be a blood, sweat, and tears statue. Our boy said he loved that, and that he should also have one made in the shape of a dragon, with magnificent scales. The kid was overjoyed with the idea. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Alice felt another chill, this one much stronger than before. Finally, after enjoying the view, Aster started to leave, saying it was getting late. Throughout the entire day, he had counted 7 mercenaries. If he included the ones he couldn't find, there had to be at least 10 of them around. And judging by how they were positioned around the center of campus, their target was definitely the second magic hall. And that second magic hall is where Professor Perron's lab is located. Just as he thought, their target had to be Professor Perron. The Declans must also know about their alliance, so it's obvious they would start to suspect the professor. Someone with connections to AN. But just then, behind him, in the bushes, he noticed another mercenary. With a malicious grin, he wondered why they hadn't come after him yet. It's like he jinxed it, because they started moving the second he thought about them. So now he's got to figure out what he can dig up on these guys. Later that night, smack in the middle of the academy, one of those mercs is on the move. He starts zipping to another spot, jumping from tree to pole to tree before ducking into a gym. And inside, another mercenary tells him he was waiting. The new arrival asks where the others are, but the guy already there says they went on ahead. HQ sent out an emergency signal, and they were ordered to regroup at the target's nest. The merc asks if he means the primary or the secondary nest, and the other guy says it's the secondary. It looks like they squeezed some important intel out of the main target, and tonight, at midnight, the objective is getting delivered to the secondary target. The mercenary says he gets it, and that Ain, the main target, has started to move. And if the order came down to them, then out of all the secondary targets, the one they have to watch must be Professor Perron. But then he starts to get nervous, asking about the single digits, and if they're serious. Are they supposed to take on a monster of a professor like that all by themselves? At the very least, number 1 or a few of the other single digits should be here to face him. But the other merc just says that number 1 isn't coming, and neither are the other single digits. But they did send someone else for the mission. The fire demon, Kane. He's the one who'll be joining them. And the mercenary starts sweating bullets. Wait, a Callahan? He asks. From what he remembers, That guy is the vice captain of the Declan's mage squad, the so-called Red Jewel. But yeah, he would definitely be enough. The only problem is, the guy's a total psycho. He's cold-blooded and will do whatever it takes to clear the mission, which means they're being told to put their own lives on the line. Lives on this mission. Especially with that psychopath involved. Another merc chimes in, warning that this operation can't turn into open conflict. Having a high-profile target from a noble family caught in the crossfire would be a disaster. The first mercenary agrees. He has to consider that too. They need to move now, because if they don't regroup soon, their chances of survival are practically zero. As the two take to the skies to meet the others, our boy is hidden in the shadows, hearing every word. He now knows the mission goes down tonight, at midnight. And yet, they still brought that psycho, Kahen, along for the ride. Aster remembers him all too well. Even back in his mercenary days, Kahen was always unhinged. After the Declan family gambled their very survival against the Blandor family, he remained loyal to his falling house, a true testament to his devotion. Even now, he's a serious threat. But his golden age truly began after the Blandor War and the Declan's unstoppable firestorm. He's the man who carved his name into history as a legendary war mage, which means Aster has to take him down. Kahen's magic is one of the Declan's arcane fire arts. As a mage renowned across the entire continent, he's worth every bit of the hype. He'd wondered why these mercenaries suddenly appeared. But it seems he stumbled upon an unexpected windfall. Still, one question remains. The target they mentioned, Wing's thesis, is currently in his possession. But they're saying it's being delivered tonight to a secondary target, Professor Perron. There's no way the thesis in his hand is a fake, and their objective couldn't be anything else. This can only mean one thing. The thesis being delivered tonight is a decoy. But then, the scene cuts to his room. That arrogant kid from before is getting ready for something. He adjusts his cloak, then walks over to Aster's bed to make sure he's asleep and hasn't noticed anything. He stares down at Aster, convinced he's in a deep slumber. Little does he know, he's looking at a wooden dummy. Now, in the Academy's second tower, Professor Perron's office. He lets out an indignant sigh. Those damn Declans. He tolerated it when they crossed the line before and did nothing. But now they dare to invade his own territory. He just doesn't understand what's making them so confident, or what this is all supposed to mean. But then, he murmurs that he understands. The next second, the door swings open, and someone stops right in front of Professor Perron. The professor thinks to himself, so this is Poe. The moment Perron says his name, the kid freezes in shock, realizing he's been made. The professor tells him next time he tries a disguise, he should refine his ether properties. It's the very foundation of concealment arts. Without a word to the professor because he has no manners, Poe hands him the envelope. Perron mutters, well, if you even get another chance to do this. The kid grows uneasy at his words. After taking the paper, Perron realizes this is Wing's handiwork. So he planned to deliver the thesis personally, avoiding the Declan's watchful eyes. But he still got caught in such a foolish way. Perron is certain there's more to it, though. That damn fox is never caught so easily. He wonders what kind of trick he's pulling this time. But just as he thinks that, the entire office explodes, catching them both by surprise. The figure in the doorway smirks. A pleasure to meet you. Especially you, Professor Perron. The name's Kahen. He wonders if a professor locked away in a lab would have ever heard of him. Poe instantly drops into a fighting stance, ready to strike. But the long-haired mage notes they have another guest. He must be a mercenary. Judging by the way he's gripping his sword, he must know who Kahen is. He asks the professor if he recognizes him. But to his fury, Perron completely ignores him. He tells Kahen to stop screwing around and get to the point, because the stench of his crap is burning his nose. Hearing this, Kahen's face twists with rage, and the psycho begins to lose it, declaring how much fun this is. No one has ever spoken to him like that before. But fine, he'll get straight to the point. He points at Poe. You're going to die. Then at the professor. And as for you, should I leave you an arm or an eye? But before he can lunge at Poe, the professor steps forward, unleashes his magic, and shields the boy. Kahen's power is monstrous, though, and it completely demolishes the office. As flames engulf the room, Poe opens his eyes, stunned to see the professor just saved his life. Perron tells Poe that from this moment on, he won't be treated as a student. He's a mercenary now, so he better protect his own life. Poe grits his teeth and agrees. Perron thinks to himself that since no alarms have gone off, the Declans must have used a powerful concealment spell to hide this chaos, and the only person he can rely on is a weak, rookie mercenary. Across the room, Kahen notes the envelope seems to be from the Blanders, and it looks like Perron won't hand it over peacefully. So, he wonders, what should he do? Maybe he'll play with them for a little while. At that moment, a magic circle erupts at his feet, unleashing a monstrous aura. Perron realizes that outside the office, several more mercenaries have appeared to attack them. Kahen is wreathed in flames, looking like a complete madman as he charges them both. Poe desperately fends off the mercenaries, while Perrin unleashes ice magic, clashing with Kahen head-on. The professor's immense power rips apart what's left of his office. All the way back at the dorms, our boy witnessed the massive explosion from a distance. From what he can see, things have gotten serious. He pulls on his mask to hide his face, remembering that it's been a while. In this moment, he is no longer Aster. He is the #1 mercenary. He says, "It's time." Crossing his hands, he whispers, "Moon, please grant me permission to become a good mercenary once again." He scoffs, thinking he sounds like a genuinely good person for once. Then, without another thought, he leaps from the building, heading straight for the massive commotion. And now, we're back in the professor's office. The psychopath just laughs, saying that wasn't half bad for a mercenary and that he's holding on surprisingly well. Poe, breathing heavily, is just stunned by that overwhelming power. He realizes he's in deep trouble. He can't believe the talisman they gave him was a protection artifact. What a lucky break. But right then, from behind him, Professor Perrin yells for him to get out of the way, already unleashing an immense wave of ice and water to combat Kahin's fire. He tells Poe he's not bad. He can trust him a little more now. Poe suddenly notices a pattern on his sword and wonders if it's enchantment magic. Perrin asks if he can keep blocking the attacks, and Poe declares, "For as long as you want. There's no retreating now." If he fails to block, he dies. But Kahin, standing before them, grins, a mage and a warrior. What a great team. But I wonder, just how long can you last? As he attacks, Poe defends with his sword while Perrin counters with his ice magic. The professor systematically takes down every mercenary that rushes him. He realizes that if things continue like this, they'll just get worn down. In that case, he'll have to play his trump card, especially against that lunatic. When the amount of mana in nature is limited and two commanding entities try to control it at once, a struggle for dominance begins between them. So he wonders just how much Kahin can handle. The long-haired mage looks on and says he understands. So, the professor wants a contest of pure power. Well then, fine, let's do it. With a wicked laugh, he unleashes even more of his power, clashing with Professor Perrin's. The immense shockwave of their colliding magic explodes once more. Office. People get blown away, and as his vision fades, all he can think is, this is garbage. These two are absolute freaks of nature, giving him zero chance to escape. If it was gonna be like this, they should have just fought each other. The other mercenaries watch in shock, completely stunned by the massive tornado, muttering about how terrifying it is. Their leader tells them to hold back. Attacking now would be a death wish, so they need to rest up. He turns, asking how many mercs they have left, but to their surprise, something ambushes them. One of them screams that it's an ambush and that they need to fall back. But while they're scattered, someone charges right into the center of the battlefield, catching everyone off guard. And just like that, our boy lands right in front of the two powerhouses. They both notice him, wondering who the heck this guy is. Staring them down, he tells them to pay attention to his grand entrance. The young merc is like, "Who is this lunatic?" And Callahan, completely annoyed, asks if he's kidding and tells him to just attack the guy already. But to Callahan's shock, our boy leaps right for his throat. He declares that this spot will be Callahan's grave, which totally stuns him. He's thinking, who is this guy claiming he's about to die? To save himself, he quickly activates a magic circle. He tries to blast Aster away while stumbling backward. He's panting hard, realizing his mana just went haywire inside him. And the other guy, who is obviously still alive, lunges at Callahan. Spitting up blood, he chokes out that he can't attack. At that moment, other mercenaries rush in to protect Callahan, who grabs a potion, thinking he needs to deal with this mana deviation now. On top of that, he wants to know where this bastard came from, but as soon as he looks at him, he notices something weird. The guy is mowing down the others way too easily, like they're nothing. Watching the scene unfold, he thinks it's incredible. The guy's movements have zero wasted motion. It's extreme efficiency, perfect, and instant magic. But he quickly realizes he was too mesmerized by Asher's battle, wondering if he's actually impressed by this. Getting seriously pissed, he yells that he doesn't know who he is. But he has to die. He summons multiple fire magic circles, launching the inferno straight at Aster, taking out all his own allies in the blast. And Asher's only thought is, yep, that's him all right. After the attack dies down, they wonder if he got him. A few other mercs were caught in the blast, but who cares? He couldn't care less, because what matters is that the mission is complete. That masked man absolutely had to be eliminated. He was way too dangerous. He grabs another potion and tells himself that getting so worked up doesn't suit him. He starts thinking he needs to regroup the other mercenaries to take down Professor Perrin. But as he's drinking another potion, he hears a voice ask, "Was that all you got?" Our boy starts talking, saying that on the outside, Callahan might seem like a lunatic, but deep down, he's as cold and cunning as a snake. From the start, he knew he'd blow up his own guys along with him. But you should know one thing, he says. That coldness of yours is what's going to get you killed. He appears in the sky right above Callahan, a magic circle on his finger, and fires a magic missile. The last thing Callahan thinks is how fast that was. The blast pierces straight through his head, even slicing his hair, and with a hole in his forehead, he finally drops to the ground, dead. Aster walks over to him, thinking that's Callahan for you. Any other mage would have died in that ambush, but he managed to counterattack. The war mage's reflexes and judgment were as sharp as ever, but his final spell actually worked in Aster's favor. If he had teamed up with the other mercenaries and turned it into a battle of attrition, Aster would have lost. After all, his own mana is still pretty low. He rummages through the guy's bag to see what loot he's got. He stares at the pouch thinking, I knew it. Most war mages don't trust anyone, so they carry their own grimoires. Of course, this spatial bag has a recognition spell on it, but he'll just deal with that later. Right now, he has something else to worry about. He turns around and says that Professor Perrin is late. Perrin walks toward him, explaining that, well, he was busy taking care of some rats, having trapped them all in ice. But Perrin gives him a serious look and says, more importantly, he wants to know if Aster is one of those rats too. Aster just replies that he just fought that lunatic. So how do you want to handle me now? He asks. And what do you think it means that I defeated Declan's allies? But Perrin stays silent as he notes Aster called him a lunatic, so it must have been Eon. The one who sent you, but you don't have to worry about him. Our boy wonders if this is the guy Eon trusts so much. Perrin then asks, so, who was that mercenary with him? And did he split the research in two? This leaves our boy confused, asking, what do you mean, split in two? Perrin explains that the other one is probably a fake, and Eon must have planned this. So he used a decoy to lure out the rats. He probably wanted to beef up security in Rice City and the Academy while cutting down the Declan family's influence. But Aster keeps thinking about it. Even though the mercenaries used concealment magic, the fight was still super intense. And even if the report was delayed, it makes no sense that the Imperial Knights aren't here yet. So the Declan family must have bribed them. Perrin then asks if he has the real research, and Aster confirms that he has the thesis. Perrin starts looking it over. He asks if Aster knows the contents, and Aster says, of course he does. Perrin says he understands. Our boy then says he doesn't mind a fight, but asks if Perrin is sure about this. You wouldn't want to lose a great ally. Perrin agrees, saying, all right, I've received the papers safely, and I wouldn't want to lose an ally either, so we'll end it here. But then he says he wants something in return. He explains that Eon only trusts a certain type of person, someone whose desires are crystal clear and align with his own. He figures Aster must be that type of person, since he's earned Eon's trust. So he should offer something in return. Our boy says a book might do. Perrin is confused. What do you mean, a book? Our boy explains he's going to build a tower, a great and majestic tower. And inside, he'll fill it with countless books for anyone to read, and he'd like one of them to be written by Perrin, about his perspective on the arcane sciences. Perrin sighs and says, all right. Not that everyone will be able to understand it, but writing a book isn't a bad idea. It actually sounds kind of fun. Our boy says, well, I'm leaving now. But Perrin tells him to wait and asks how they'll stay in touch, saying he might need to deliver another paper. Our boy thinks about it for a moment. Then he pulls something like a pearl necklace from his storage and tells him to use it. It's a communication crystal. The two halves are linked. Just break one of the spheres to contact me. And break more than one if you're in trouble. It'll save me the trouble of looking for you. But Perrin calls for him to wait, saying he doesn't know his name. But when he looks up, our boy has already vanished. The professor wonders to himself why he has such a bad feeling about this. And so, a short time later, the Imperial Knights finally showed up and quickly secured the area. They temporarily evacuated the Academy students to prevent any possible follow-up attacks. Of course, Aster went along with everyone else. Leah runs up and asks her friend where he's been. Aster tells her he just got back. He just went to check something out, thinking to himself that Callahan's body, plus the other mercenaries, is solid evidence. The Declan family should stay quiet for a while, but more than that, he wonders why his seal reacted during the fight. It usually doesn't respond, but when he blocked Callahan's magic, he felt a power resonate through the barrier, and that power helped him block the counterattack. So he's not going to complain. It wasn't that the barrier itself got stronger. It was more like a rejection phenomenon, a new technique. It's a basic spell most mages use. It keeps a caster from getting torched by their own magic. But he's totally lost, trying to figure out what just went down. Still, he can't wrap his head around why it activated times then asterisk, or what even triggers the seal in the first place. Either way, he's got to look into it. Glancing over, he spots the biggest library in the East Lapette, right inside the academy. He figures he's bound to find some answers in there. But just then, a kid stops him from behind, asking if he's Aster. He says it's an honor to meet him and that his name is Shamey. Our boy just hits him with a, so what? The kid says he fought well, but our confused main character wonders if this guy is here for a fight. If he finds out his identity, things are gonna get messy. He even wonders if he should just silence him for good, but the kid, suddenly super excited, says the fight he had against that guy from the martial arts division during the entrance ceremony was totally awesome. He asks how he pulled off moves like that. Aster realizes that instead of making a bad impression, he's actually built up a pretty good reputation. And even though the kid says his name without an ounce of respect, Aster just says, well, the guy I fought back then was weak. But that's about to change. Shamey says he gets it, but then an awkward silence falls between the three of them. The kid starts following Aster, asking if he can hang out with him. He admits he hasn't made any friends yet, and it'd be weird trying to break into other groups. You know? Aster thinks. Asterisk. Yeah, I guess so. Asterisk. The academy promises equal treatment for everyone, no matter their background. But that's a promise from the school, not from the students. For someone like him, from a dirt-poor family, dealing with this kind of prejudice is normal. Not that he really cares. Our boy just says he wasn't expecting much from him anyway. That's when Shamey says, thank God. To be honest, I was pretty nervous. After what went down yesterday, being alone feels kinda weird. Our main character says he thinks he gets it. So the two start talking, and Aster thinks, asterisk. So this is what a normal conversation feels like. Asterisk. In this life, so far, he's only met total lunatics. Professor Perrin, the old butler, and Damian himself. He'd forgotten what regular people were even like. Now, it's time to start his academy life, the most normal life he can possibly live. The next morning, everyone's gathered in the playing auditorium. Damian is yawning his head off, complaining he's still exhausted, while our main character just keeps reading his books. But then, Shamey pops up right beside him, saying, good morning, to Aster and Damian. He comments, I can't believe we have to come to class after all that chaos yesterday. Aster just says, yeah, tell me about it. Meanwhile, he's thinking that this Shamey guy, judging from their talk yesterday, isn't from a noble family or loaded with cash. And yet, he's not the least bit shy. In fact, he's super energetic and seems like a decent person. Just then, Shamey turns and asks Aster if their professor is going to be Miss Zira. Aster asks, who's Zira? Shamey looks totally baffled, asking if he seriously doesn't know who she is. She's the one who single-handedly wiped out an entire order of trolls. Our main character looks to the front and realizes it's times her asterisk. Now he remembers she's the professor, who was on stage during the entrance ceremony. She steps up to the podium and tells everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Zira. There was a small disturbance yesterday, but that's not something you need to worry about. You should focus only on your studies. And now, before our first class, we will be measuring everyone's mana. This measurement will evaluate both the quantity and the quality of your mana. She then asks the class, which of those two do you think is more important? A girl quickly raises her hand, and Zira asks for her name. She says her name is Arjem. Zara tells her she can answer. The girl, looking a bit nervous, says, I don't know the concrete answer, but if someone already has a certain amount of mana, I'd say its quality is more important. The professor asks why. She replies, when it comes to a mage as powerful as yourself, the one with the higher quality mana would naturally have the upper hand. Aster thinks, asterisk, not a bad answer. Asterisk, asterisk. The quality of mana affects a spell's precision, stability, and power. Asterisk, asterisk. Even if you have a ton of mana. Asterisk, asterisk. It's useless if you can't hit your target. Asterisk, asterisk. Still, that's not 100% correct. Asterisk. But the professor's expression suddenly sours, shocking the girl with her reaction. The professor asks, Miss Arjem, what family are you from? She answers that she's from the Pen Barony. Zira, with pure arrogance, says, that figures. The words leave the girl devastated, on the verge of tears. Zira then asks the others if they have an answer, noticing that no one wants to respond. Fine, I'll choose then, she says, pointing to some random guy. She asks his name, and he says it's Philo. He answers, I think the quantity of mana might be more important. In large-scale battles, a larger amount would be more useful. Aster thinks, asterisk. That's also true. Asterisk, asterisk. From another perspective, quantity can overpower quality. Asterisk, asterisk. Basically, it all depends on the situation. Asterisk, asterisk. They can both be equally asterisk. Asterisk. Essential. Asterisk. But this answer only makes the professor more furious. She glares at him with pure hatred and demands, what's your family? He tells her he doesn't have one. She moves on to the next, and the next, as each gives their answer. Some say speed, casting ability, and other things. But she gets angry with every single one, asking for their family, and repeating the same cycle with all of them. Asher wonders, asterisk, what kind of person is she? Is this a class or an interrogation? Asterisk, Zira says she's heard them all out, and that actually, all of them were close to the truth. The thing is, there was never a correct answer to begin with, which means she wasn't looking for the right answer at all. You all need to think harder about the kind of answers you gave. Was it something you truly believed, or were you just trying to guess what I wanted to hear? A mage must never lose their conviction. No matter where or when, you must not act based on the opinions of others. You must have the strength to hold on to your will until the very end. She glares at all the students and asks, can you truly call that the mindset of a real mage? So, from now on, you will become true mages. That is the message I wanted to share with you all. Guard it in your hearts. The announcement leaves the entire class stunned. Meanwhile, our main character thinks, asterisk, that was brilliant. Asterisk, asterisk. So, in the end, I was right. Asterisk, asterisk. But man, that is one hell of a way to teach a lesson. Asterisk. Zira then says, now, you will come up, one by one, to have your mana measured. And the first one I'm calling is Miss Argem. The announcement shocks the crying girl. The professor says, you will be the class representative for Class M3 of the Magic Division. Your answer from before was quite impressive. You will record the mana levels of your classmates. The girl, now overjoyed, can only thank her, as Asher thinks, asterisk. So this is how she trains people, asterisk. Beside him, Shamey mutters that he's super jealous of that girl. And with that, Zira calls her assistant to step forward. He pulls the cloth off an object on the stage, revealing a crystal, magical orb covered in various insignias. Zira explains, most of you have likely never seen this before. So, it's time to discover your individual mana levels. And who knows, there might even be a monster among you. How to use it is simple. She instructs Miss Argem to place her hand on the crystal ball and circulate her mana into it. The girl says, right, and places her hand on the crystal. After she does, the crystal ball reacts, calculating her mana. A moment later, the number 4 appears on the projector. The professor says, you should be able to see this clearly. Among the various indicators, the main one is in the center. This represents the refinement index, which, in other words, is the quality of your mana on a scale of 1 to 10. Miss Argem is at level 4. Considering last year's freshman averaged a level 3, that's quite impressive. The girl is absolutely beaming. Blushing but excited, she thanks the professor, who announces they will now measure her mana capacity. The process is simple. She just needs to pour her mana into the orb. The moment she does, the crystal ball begins to glow. The professor explains the scale goes from 0 to 100, and Miss Argem's capacity is a solid 17. Considering last year's average was 15, her score is slightly above the curve. Judging by her quality and quantity, she's clearly been training diligently. She congratulates Miss Argen, much to the girl's surprise. Meanwhile, Shinbi leans over to Aster and whispers, I hope yours is high too. But Aster just watches the girl, thinking he can already see her entire future. She's destined to become a high-ranking devotee. A moment later, the professor excuses herself, leaving the students to continue the measurements under the assistant professor's supervision. And so, one by one, they each take their turn. Shinbi gets antsy and asks Aster, hey, why don't we just get this over with? As Aster stands, he notices Damian is totally asleep, but a sudden noise from below grabs their attention. A massive reaction was taking place. Someone had just scored a refinement level of 6 and a mana quantity of 20, an incredible result. The assistant professor asks for his name, and the boy proudly states he is Furion DI. Aster immediately recognizes the family name. Judging by his different hair color, he must be from a branch family. Aster deduces this from the way he announced his first name before his full family name. The assistant remarks that for a noble family, his results are excellent, but his mana capacity is a bit lacking compared to his level 6 refinement. Still, it's an impressive score. The smug-looking boy just offers a curt thanks. Just then, Damian finally stirs, asking what all the noise is about. Aster explains they're measuring mana, and Damian asks why. Our hero admits he doesn't know either, but figures it can't hurt to try. After all, it's part of the class. Damian's eyes light up with excitement. Seriously? Can I try too? He asks, while our hero thinks, this is going to be so embarrassing. And so, the three of them head down. The crowd immediately starts whispering, noticing the young heir of Blandor, who looks far too young to be there. And next to him is Aster, the guy who beat up Exter on the first day. Aster gets a little flustered, thinking this whole situation sucks. He never wanted to be known for that. He just got a little carried away. The assistant professor recognizes the Blandor heir and invites him to take the test. Damian turns to Aster and asks if he should just circulate his mana. Aster nods. He places his hand on the crystal, and an immense power erupts, shocking everyone. They all wonder how it's even possible. That kid from the DI family is in total shock, realizing he's looking at a true monster. His mana quality is 9, and his quantity is 67. The hall erupts into chaos as everyone tries to process what they just witnessed. Our hero watches the chaos unfold, realizing this is how normal people react to a true genius, a wall they can never hope to climb. He already knew Damian was a prodigy, but he had no idea it was this absurd. And Damian, ever the airhead, just asks, "Is that a high score?" Our hero recalls that now he understands why the monster of Blandor was so overwhelmingly strong. He was simply born that way. If the Damian from his past life had actually applied himself, the fate of the entire continent would have been different. But this time, things will change. Blandor will forever be an obstacle for the Declans, and he will push Damian to transcend all ordinary limits. The flustered assistant tells Damian he is truly worthy of the Blandor name and that his results are impressive, but warns him not to let it go to his head. A mage's true skill isn't decided by mana alone. The excited Damian just agrees and runs over to Aster. He asks if Aster has measured his yet, but Aster says he hasn't. He glances around and sees everyone staring, their curiosity piqued. They want to know how this no-name kid compares to the genius heir of Blandor, the one who beat up Dolamp's son. He thinks to himself that he needs to keep a low profile. A mediocre score is the safest bet. The assistant calls out his name, and he replies, "It's Aster." He places his hand on the crystal, planning to slightly alter his mana's property and use just a decent amount. But then he feels something is off and wonders why the limiter is set so low. He thinks to himself, "We're screwed. We're totally screwed. This whole thing is about to blow up way bigger than he expected." Suddenly, number 10 appears, and the amount of mana in the air just skyrockets. The index flashes red, showing an error message. The crystal announces, "Limit exceeded. Please reset the device." Everyone is stunned into silence, wondering what the hell is happening. But Damian is ecstatic, shouting that his friend is amazing. Aster claims it's not working and that they need to measure it again. The assistant agrees, but Damian insists the first reading was right. Our hero tells him to shut up, but Damian just repeats that the machine was correct. The assistant tells him to try again now that it's been rebooted. A new result appears, refinement level 3, mana level 15. Everyone mutters that this is what they expected, and the first result was just an error. Aster sighs in relief, thinking he needs to be more careful from now on. But Damian whispers behind him, "I don't like this crap at all." This startles our hero, who asks where he learned a word like that. Damian, looking irritated, says his friend told him that when something is a lie, you call it crap. So all of that was crap. Aster just forces a smile, realizing he can't speak his mind anymore, or he'll end up teaching the kid bad habits. Later that day, in Professor Zara's office, she gazes out the window, thinking about the recent battle. The Declan family and the mage Kane had attacked Professor Perrin. He gets exactly how Damian feels, but what can he do? He just has to face the music and move on. Just then, Damian calls out, saying today was a total blast. He feels like coming to this academy was the right call, which completely catches our boy off guard. He just smiles back, telling him that's good to hear. The next morning, in a secluded spot, our hero looks at Callahan's spatial bag, noticing that it's sealed shut, but if he can just understand the principles of its magic, and if his own mana sense is sharp enough, he can easily shatter whatever pattern the owner placed on it. With the right tools, this job would have taken a week, tops. But since he had to work in secret inside a private training room, it took an entire month. Even then, he didn't waste all his time on it. He already converted the elixir he got from Blundor into mana and absorbed it, all while soaking up a ton of knowledge from the academy. Long story short, he can finally open this thing. The moment he breaks the seal on the spatial bag, the first things he grabs are vials of potions. Next, he pulls out a cloak, but knows he can't use it. Then he finds something weird that looks like a pair of bracers. He realizes it's a defensive artifact, and its power is actually pretty decent. And now, it should be about time for that to appear. He finally finds it. Declan's secret grimoire, the Crimson Flames. It's a secret magic, just a tier below the flames used by Farron. A wicked kind of magic that can even burn through force fields. Of course, he'll have to master it to actually burn them, and that's not something you can learn overnight. So, he'll just have to take it at his own pace. But now that he thinks about it, that thing was today, the midterm performance evaluation. After finishing his training, he joins Shimby and Damian in a massive crowd, muttering about how packed the place is. Shimby agrees, then asks if he heard the latest news. Our boy just asks, "What news?" He says there are rumors the test this semester is the Canyon Breakthrough. A few days back, some Moan students overheard the staff talking. Apparently, they were saying the canyon needed repairs during this busy period. Aster just nods, understanding the implication. The performance evaluation Shimby's talking about has 3 types of practical tests. The first is the Gauntlet of Challenges. It's a maze-like sewer where you have to reach a certain objective. There's also the canyon breakthrough, where students race to the finish line, and the simulator, where you duel another person or a monster. Among them, the canyon breakthrough is probably the most famous. But no matter which event it is, he couldn't care less. As long as he can pass without a hitch, he's fine. But Shimbi doesn't seem to feel the same way and starts brainstorming different strategies to clear the canyon. Just then, G shows up and tells them to be quiet. A professor steps before everyone, saying it's good to see them again. He is Professor Perrin, the instructor for the Moan class of the Magic Department, and he'll be observing their performance evaluation. Aster smirks at him, thinking it's been a while. It looks like the professor's dark circles have only gotten worse. With that, he begins to explain the test to everyone. As you all know, today is the day of the midterm evaluation, and the test chosen for this occasion is the Gauntlet of Challenges. The news leaves Shimbi absolutely stunned. He starts to tremble, muttering, "Crap, all my planning went down the drain." But Damian just calls him a total liar, leaving Shimbi heartbroken. Perrin then explains the rules. Line up according to your class. After the lines are separated, he continues, the objective of this test is very simple. The Gauntlet of Challenges is a labyrinthine sewer. You must pass through it until you reach the final gate. And no matter what path you take, you'll eventually reach the goal. So there's no reason to worry. Shimbi mutters that it sounds easy, but the professor adds that it would just become a meaningless race. So there's another element in the gauntlet. Golems. The kid freaks out, shouting, "You've got to be kidding me." From across the way, Damian tells him to watch his language. Perrin continues, "They may be slow and clumsily built, but they'll still be a handful for you at your current levels. Their cores are exposed and their durability has been adjusted, so you should be able to destroy them easily enough. But even so, in such a confined space, they will quickly overwhelm you." As the students start to grumble, Perrin thinks to himself, these mages really lack composure. That poor boy showed courage, pushing himself to his limit. But perhaps his environment was to blame. Still, there are a few students with potential. That one over there is tense, but her will is strong, and those two have the eyes of someone burning with life. As for this one, never mind. His head is completely empty. He loudly announces, "That's enough! Students, be on alert. Your professor says the golems will only act as guardians at the intersections. Whether you choose to defeat them or avoid them, the choice is yours. You will each be given an evaluation bracer. These bracers have a defensive power similar to a force field. If the force field breaks, you are disqualified, and the golems will begin to ignore you. It's a perfect competitive system. Finally," he says, "since you all seem so unmotivated, I'll make a suggestion. Impress me. I don't care if you're the first to arrive or if you defeat the most opponents. If you show me something truly impressive, I will give a special prize to you alone, one that will not disappoint." A smirk crosses Aster's face. A prize that won't disappoint, huh? Now things are starting to get interesting. Aster's mind flashes back to the greatest library on the eastern continent, Lapenter. It was divided into 3 levels, upper, middle, and lower. Among them, the only section he's allowed to enter is the lower one. When he visited looking for clues about his stigma, he couldn't find a single useful grimoire down there. In the end, to find a real clue, he needs to search the middle or upper floors, but the middle and upper floors are accessible only to the high nobility, members of the imperial family or the great houses. Besides that, the only other way in is to obtain recommendations from at least 3 professors. And that's exactly why he has to win Professor Perrin's prize. He was just trying to lay low in the middle of the pack, but it seems the world around him just won't leave him in peace. The meetup is at point 3. He scans the area, sizing up the others who'll be joining him. Deemer, buzzing with excitement, shouts that he'll see him inside, while Shimbi wishes them both good luck. Meanwhile, our boy processes the situation. Every starting point is different. The members at point 3 are 6 total strangers he's never even met. It's a grim reminder of his past, how he used to tackle missions alone with unfamiliar units. Honestly, it was always a pain in the ass. Just then, a voice cuts through his thoughts, asking if he's Asher. Our guy looks up to see a kid dripping with arrogance, flanked by 2 of his buddies. Asher asks what he wants. He wasn't from class 3, and he'd never seen someone so smug before. Just looking at the guy made him want to run him through. The kid takes a step forward. "The name's Divey," he says. "I heard you're pretty skilled. I'd like to make you a little proposal." Asher just tells him to spit it out. The kid explains he'll buy the bracelets of anyone who fails for 30 gold coins apiece, including the 3 randoms. If Asher handles them, he'll pay him 90 gold. Asher thinks to himself, 30 gold coins is roughly a month's income for an average commoner family. Not a bad deal, the kid smirks. Even for a gutter rat from the Black Zone. The young master might be looking out for you now, but how long will that last? It's time you learn to fend for yourself. But Asher's expression remains a blank slate, so that was his angle. Honestly, the kid wasn't wrong. Other students might call it cowardly or unfair. But these guys were just using what they had: filthy rich families. So why not? Good for them, really. Still, none of that mattered to him. He looks at the kid and asks, "Why 90? Divey scoffs, asking if it's not enough. "Fine," he says, "35 coins per bracelet. That's 105 gold total." But Aster just replies, "Your math is still missing a few people." Now the young masters look confused. They'd have to do the calculations again. Besides the other three, Divey points out that he's right there. But Aster corrects him. "Including us, there are 6. The kid asks, "So what?" Our hero fires back, "Why are you leaving out the price on your own heads? You raised it to 35 per person, so now that's 210 gold coins. That's the correct math." After he says that, the 3 nobles stare, completely dumbfounded. They never expected him to say something so insane. Divey is furious, wondering what the hell this crap is. Doesn't this lowborn trash know his place? Where did he get this kind of nerve? He grits his teeth and asks if 35 isn't enough. "All right, fine. I'll raise your cut to 100, and not a coin more." But Aster just says, "Then the total would be 240 gold coins." Divey demands to know if he's insane, but then it hits him. This lowborn bastard was trying to milk him for every last coin he had, and he didn't even seem to realize his own greed. Then again, he just wanted to see how wild he could get right in front of him. What a complete waste of time. He was irritated. Aster was the perfect hunting dog to carry out the young lady's orders. But this dog was rabid, and he'd have to find another way. He turns to leave, saying the negotiation is over, and tells him to pretend this never happened. But Aster stops him. "Where do you think you're going? We can forget about the others, but you still have to pay for your bracelets." Divey whips around, furious, asking what he means. Our hero explains calmly, "You loaded cargo onto a wagon that charges fares for both cargo and people. Then you remove the cargo. So, you should at least pay the passenger fare." He wants him to pay 120 gold coins, 40 per person. That was the last straw. The kid next to Divey explodes, screaming that he's a miserable scumbag. He'd heard stories, but he'd never seen a bandit from the Black Zone this brazen before. He screams, asking if he really thinks Divey is on the same level as him. For your information, Divey's distant ancestor holds the title of Baron, but Divey just hisses his name, Paycon. The furious kid doesn't hear him and tells him not to stop, because he's going to teach this bastard a lesson he'll never forget. But Divey gets even angrier, shouting his name again. When the kid finally looks over, he sees Divey's face as a mask of pure, unrestrained rage. "Don't you dare put me in a position where I lose even more face than I already have." He turns to Aster and asks if it's really 120 gold. Then he pulls out a money pouch, thinking to himself to just endure it. The young lady's orders were more important than these fools. If they could secure a trade deal with the young lady, the Merchants Guild could grow several times over. The second Aster takes the money, he says, "I didn't realize I was in the presence of someone so distinguished. In that case, I suppose the unit price has gone up. Since you're so noble, I'll charge you double." That brings the total to 160 gold coins. The kid grits his teeth. "Yeah, I get it," and pays Aster 160 gold, but then he sneers. "From now on, I'm going to show you just how miserable your life can be. All for 160 gold. You just wait." A little later, everyone is prepared to begin the evaluation. The professor explains the rules again. If the shield on their bracelet shatters, they will be eliminated. The condition for the shield's activation is magic that directly hits the body or counterattacks imbued with mana. When the shield is destroyed, the bracelet will remain, and the user will be forcibly teleported out of the test site. They don't have to worry about getting injured. Right behind our boy, Divey is still glaring at him, seething with rage. The assistant gives the signal to Perron, who confirms that they can begin now. Then, magic circles flare to life beneath them, and everyone is teleported to the location. The assistant announces that the transport is complete, and he'll now display the internal video feed. They will now begin scoring, and Perron, watching from behind, thinks to himself that Dolly and Damian are starting from the same point. After pulling a stunt like that, he can't possibly think he'll walk away clean. So our guy just uses magic on his head, beating the ever-living crap out of him again. He figures 100 hits is basically 10 gold coins. And without Damian around, reining in his power is a little tricky, and he's got to make sure the roles of victim and aggressor don't get flipped. But let's be real, he's the actual victim here. Now that he's got the bracelets, he's wondering what to do next. He needs 3 recommendations in total. Besides the one from Farron, he's going to need 2 more people to vouch for him. In the end, he has to get other professors to write him a recommendation, and he immediately wonders what he'd have to do to impress them. As he thought, he started to wonder if maybe he could just destroy the challenge corridors. There are only 4 pillars holding this place up, but that would definitely be suicide and would make him the enemy of the entire Eastern continent. Not wanting to think about it anymore, he just pushes forward, deciding to just walk around for a bit. And as he wanders, he can't help but wonder how those other guys are doing. Now, on the other side of the cavern with another team of students, all the guys are in shock, saying if this keeps up, they're all getting disqualified. And they're begging for that psycho young master to at least let them pass. And this so-called psycho young master is Damian himself, looking completely unhinged and screaming that there's no way in hell he's letting them get by. As they run in fear, they scream, "What the hell is this? And how is he controlling golems with vine seeds?" But as they scrambled, one of them ended up tripping by accident. When he turned around, he saw the gigantic golem right in front of him, ready to crush him flat. But the scene cuts to that kid, their friend, whining that he just wanted to pass this stupid evaluation. That's all. So he begs them, please, just stop attacking him. But the students on the other side just scream that he's a damn commoner and tell him to hand over his bracelet quietly. The two girls chat, wondering who's going to grab him, but one asks why it has to be her and if she's supposed to lure him out. The other girl replies that she should use her mana while she does it. The kid in hiding keeps listening to their conversation, thinking that now is the perfect chance to escape. And so, without a second thought, he starts running like his life depends on it. But as he ran, he glanced at his arm and felt a jolt from his bracelet. He wonders what the hell is happening and if he's being afflicted by some kind of magic without even noticing. So he figures he must be disqualified now and will be teleported out of here any second. But then he notices something really strange. He wasn't sent out, and nothing happened. While he was wondering why he wasn't teleported, a voice starts speaking to him, asking if he can hear it. And then, the voice takes on a bone-chilling tone. It says to the dear students of the academy. The kid freezes in shock listening to the voice, realizing it doesn't belong to anyone from the school. The voice continues. Most of you may not know who we are, but one of you has likely already guessed, since you should know why we are doing this. And for the one who suspects our identity, this message is for you. We have no demands, only that you must face the consequences for angering a powerful being. Even Damian, listening in, says that was seriously creepy, but he shows no other reaction, which is super weird for a guy like him. But right after, that voice continues, declaring that here and now, all students will die, and there is no escape for any of them. They can all die in despair. Back in the director's office, Professor Farron is in shock, yelling that's enough and telling his assistant to stop panicking. He orders them to go after the professors, especially the feline professor. He must bring her there at once. And as the assistant runs off, Farron is consumed by rage, smashing the table and wondering how these damn worms dare to do this. And back to our boy, he just crushed a golem with ease, muttering that this is a total drag. They just don't stop coming, with another mob of golems right in front of him. And just like that, the golems charge at Aster while he takes down every single one with a monstrous punch to its core. But he stops for a moment, thinking about how that voice echoed through the entire test field. It's only been about 10 minutes, and the golems that are supposed to be slow and tough are now fast and agile. On top of that, there's something else. They know exactly where he is, and they're coming with everything they've got. And if the Guardian-type golems are coming at him on their own, that means someone tampered with the control system, too. Which also means there are way more of them, and they must have released all the golems from the warehouse. But with a super confident smirk, he thinks, well, who am I anyway? He's the #1 problem solver who's been through everything. Except maybe air combat. And so, with his hands crackling with magic, he charges at the golems, declaring that whoever it is, he's going to beat them to a bloody pulp. Shortly after, the scene cuts to another location showing the main character's friend, thinking that if he'd known it would come to this, he should have just quit way earlier. He gets super nervous, picturing himself dying. But no, he's not dead yet, though he's getting pretty close. As he was walking through the corridors, he spots someone running toward him and wonders who it is, and if by some chance it's another survivor. He recognizes our boy running his way and gets excited to see Aster. But right after he realizes it's Aster and yells his name, he starts to feel an immense tremor. And behind Aster, not one, but 2 golems are chasing after him. Aster sprints right past Shem and says, "So it's you." And then he tells him to run like hell, because otherwise, he's gonna die. And just like that, the kid starts running like there's no tomorrow. Our boy, running beside him, realizes he must have sensed his mana and came running, but it wasn't Damian. At this rate, he's going to get caught too. Thinking about it, he realizes it's time for plan B, and so he tells Shem to give him his bracelet. The kid just asks, "What do you mean?" Our boy says that a golem's detection range isn't all that wide, and for them to be chasing them with such accuracy, it's because the bracelet must be linked to the control system. It's basically acting like a homing beacon for the golem, but the kid, still surprised, asks what he's going to do. Our guy says he's already been marked as a target, so drawing them to himself will give him the best shot at survival. While he runs, it'll buy him time to find Damian. Right after, he tells Shem that he has a family too, and whoever can live should live. Hearing this, the kid is completely stunned, remembering what his parents told him. They asked him not to worry and just focus on his magic, because no matter what anyone says, he should never bow his head to anyone. He gets super emotional, nearly crying, and says that this whole thing sucks. But you better actually survive, he says. You have to stay alive so we can see each other again, handing the bracelet to Aster. Right after he turns away, he thinks that he has no choice. He has to live. His parents bought a magic book for him instead of food. His younger sister dropped out of school because of him. His family and his sisters, they all deserve so much more than this. He has to pay them back for everything. But in that moment, he remembers his mom calling him her pride, and he's in shock just remembering it. He wonders if he's really someone to be proud of. He's indecisive, shy, and honestly, there's nothing special about him. And he's someone capable of even abandoning his friend. He asks himself if that's something to be proud of, and he knows it's not. Definitely not. He won't put another drop of guilt in his heart. Even if he's peaceful, he will never give up. Magic. He begs for it to please work this time. Immense power begins to form above his fingers. He unleashes Earth Spear, remembering his master's words. This spell was said to pierce through anything, as majestic as a knight's lance. Suddenly, he screams for Aster to get down. Our hero looks back, completely shocked. What the hell is that? He wonders. A gigantic spear of rock erupts from the ground, blasting toward the golems. It detonates on impact, destroying everything around it. Watching this, Aster is absolutely astonished. He thinks, that's a spell that doesn't just reshape rock. It changes its very quality. That's a level of magic Kemby can't possibly maintain. He glances back and sees Kemby, completely out of breath. As the kid collapses, our hero stares him down. Kemby mutters that his master's words finally make sense. He thinks he understands it now. The master left him a spell called Earth Spear, a name that always felt a little too grand. But our hero disagrees. No, it's not too grand at all. Seriously? Kemby asks. Our hero smirks. Okay, maybe it's a little grand. With a spell like that, its true value depends on the caster. Whether it's grand or not is all up to you. A smiling Kemby calls out to Aster. But our boy is pissed, yelling that he's acting like he's at death's door. A little scratch like this won't kill you. He forces a healing potion down Kemby's throat. Once Kemby's back on his feet, he asks what he's supposed to do with him now. He can't drag him along, but he can't just leave him here either. Aster starts to weigh his options. He scans the area, searching for tracks and sensing the flow of mana. He points. Go straight at that fork. Keep to the right. You'll run into the other students. But Kemby asks, what about you? Our hero thinks to himself that the mana flowing to the control room feels wrong. It's familiar, but it's not the Declan's methods. He tells Kemby, his voice dead serious. I have something I need to check out. I don't know what it is, but I've got a really bad feeling about this. And with that, our hero takes off running. Sprinting through the halls, he wonders where he's felt this before. It wasn't the Declans. It was something else. Something similar. As he rounds a corner, he skids to a sudden stop. He whispers, is this a demonic realm? A twisted grin spreads across his face. So that's what this is. No wonder it felt so familiar. This unforgettable demonic energy. And worse, demonic beasts are swarming the area. They even recreated those evil creatures that terrorized the continent centuries ago, always pulling the worst stunts imaginable. His grin widens into a crazed smile. So it's you, Frezin, you filthy, damn rat. Inside the testing grounds control room, Frezin bursts out laughing. It's a complete success. A real demonic beast appeared. The demonic realm has manifested perfectly. Before, he'd only had partial success generating demonic energy. But this time, it's complete. And it's all thanks to this ancient artifact. With spatial isolation, he slipped in without a fight. He used the corrosion of demonic energy to seize the control room. He didn't just take it over. He manifested the demonic realm itself. It's truly a beautiful thing, he marvels. Behind him, a hooded man appears, asking if it was a success. He demands to know if he did a half-assed job. Frezin insists that just generating demonic energy fulfilled his end of the contract. The professor you want to capture will fall on his own, but the mysterious man just says, fine, I don't care how you do it. As long as Zenith Academy, the very place that protects him, is destroyed. It's all good. Frezin bows deeply. Yes, of course. He calls him a watchdog of the great and powerful Weimar family. But the long-haired man warns him, if you want to stay alive, don't ever let your filthy mouth speak my family's name again. Frezin thinks to himself that this guy is just a random vassal of the Declans, a total coward. But once this contract is over, the Weimars will give him his own lab, so he can tolerate this punk until then. More importantly, creating a demonic realm fulfills his cult's deepest desire. He's thrilled about it. After all, he's helping the forbidden magic society known as Salvation. The old geezers will be drooling to support him now. He gets giddy just thinking about it. The hooded man interrupts, asking Frezin how long until he has full control of the core. A student is approaching, he says. Frezin asks, a student? What do you mean? Looks like our first test subject has arrived. Test subject? The other man asks. Frezin grins. Aren't you curious what happens when a human is exposed to this much demonic energy? Maybe they go insane. Or just drop dead, poisoned by the energy. That's what everyone thinks. But according to ancient texts, it's different for humans with mana. It's called bestification. They become beasts, driven only by madness. Back in the hallway, Aster wonders what to do now. Golems are behind him. Demonic beasts are in front. There's nowhere to run. The only way is forward. But Frezin thinks, I wouldn't bother if I were you. To his absolute shock, our hero looks straight up, staring right at the camera watching him. Frezin freezes, looking at the monitor in disbelief. He can clearly see our hero mouthing his name. Just you wait, Frezin. The long-haired man behind him is stunned. Have you seen that kid before? Frezin stammers. No. I have no idea who that brat is. How the hell does he know my name? Who is he? To Frezin's utter shock, our hero pulls something from his clothes. 3 bracelets. Frezin recognizes them. The test bracelets. No, that can't be. That's impossible! He watches in horror as our hero charges the golems. He tears through them, destroying every single one, and the demonic beasts, too. As he rushes past them, he stabs the bracelets into their bodies. Into their corpses, he snarls a single command. From now on, kill each other. Back in the control room, Frezin is losing his mind. It can't be! He can't do that to my babies! Then a chilling thought hits him. Who the hell is this kid? How can he be so fast? He screams at the man beside him. You have to stop him, right now. Whatever it takes. He can only watch as Aster decimates his demonic beasts and golems. A few mere seconds later, an explosion rocks the building. Our hero smashes his way into the control room. He appears before the two of them. It's been a while, he says. We finally meet. But as he says this, in another scene, Kemby shouts that he finally found him too. Damian. A whole squad of golems is following him. Kemby yells, they're all my friends. This is Cerberus 1, 2, and 3. Standing next to Kemby, a white-haired girl appears. She asks how he managed to get there all alone. But the moment Kemby looks at her, he notices her bracelet. He starts screaming at them. Throw your bracelets away, as fast as you can. The golems are tracking you through the bracelets. The white-haired girl just stares at her wrist, unimpressed. But another person next to her steps forward. That's ridiculous. This is a testing site, he scoffs. Why would I trust you and throw my bracelet away? His voice turns cold. Are you trying to steal our bracelets? His and everyone else's? Kemby is stunned, wondering where the hell this guy pulled that crap from. The kid and the others begin to glare at Kemby with suspicion. Kemby, getting nervous, argues, look at the situation we're in. Do you really think the bracelets matter right now? They're linked to the control system. They're acting as locators. But the kid in front of him just asks, and how did you figure that out? When Kemby says Aster told him, the boy breaks into a small, knowing smile. Model. Of course, that's what he'd say. Looks like he got played by that bum from the gray streets who tossed his bracelet, and now he's trying to talk his way out of it, playing everyone for fools. It seems he's the type who likes to run his own little game, and even he, a guy who at least pays attention in class, got corrupted by that street rat. Hearing those words, Joda gets seriously pissed. Gritting his teeth, he thinks if they don't know anything, they should just shut their mouths. His friend is out there saving everyone, fighting off golems. But just then, to Cheb's surprise, Damian speaks up beside him, saying that when he first met Asher, he asked him what he had. And without a single moment of hesitation, Asher answered that he had a friend. That's why he trusts him, his one and only friend. Then he rips off his bracelet, tossing it to the ground like it's worthless. He tells them to take as much as they want, and then tells Cheb it's time to go. Meanwhile, Cheb stares at Asher's back, wondering why he's acting like this. He's never been like this before. But right after that, the scene cuts back to our boy, staring down those two villains. He says, long time no see, freeze. We finally meet again. I once went all the way to the demon realm just to take you down. But I never expected we'd run into each other here. Freeze, looking panicked, calls him a lunatic, claiming he doesn't even know him. What demon realm was that? He calls the other guy Hound and says he has no idea what he's talking about, begging him for protection. But the so-called Hound asks if this is really the first time they've met. Freeze, furious, spits out that yes, it is. The masked man says he understands. Taking a step forward, he tells our boy, it's the contract. I have no choice. I just have to eliminate you without a trace. Staring down this Hound, our boy recognizes him as one of the Vima, a vassal family sworn to the Declans, the secret wind magic of the Vima family. A prestigious house known for its speed and piercing power, much like an archer's. And the one who was raised apart, the rejected child. He is called the Hound, a being who acts as a true hunting dog on the front lines for a hunter. But Aster is still puzzled, wondering why a hound of the Vima is running with a rat like him. Hearing this, the masked man is taken aback, asking if he somehow knows who they are. Meanwhile, our boy, absolutely enraged, starts yelling, repeating that he asked first why a hound of the Vima is with this rat. The hound just wonders what's wrong with this psycho. It's like he already knows he's going to die. But even if he asks, what difference does it make? Once again, our boy demands to know why the Vima's hound is with a rat like him. Answer me now, he commands. The hound, enraged, tells him to stop repeating the same thing and lunges at him, while our boy effortlessly dodges his attacks. Appearing right in his face, he asks again, why is the Vima's hound with a rat like him? But the hound, furious, summons a magic circle and tells him to cut it out now. If you know who I am, why are you so obsessed with this all of a sudden? After he activates his magic, his axes become enchanted, appearing right at Aster's back, ready to pierce through him. But once again, Aster just keeps charging forward, screaming the same question. That was the last straw, sending the hound into a blind rage. He starts rushing Aster, wondering why this bastard can't just shut his damn mouth. With his soul return magic, combined with rotation and speed enchantments, there's no way he can dodge. But to the hound's utter shock, our boy appears before him, saying, "You're way too wound up," as he easily sidesteps the returning axes. Then he adds that he's raised dogs like him before, and if there's one thing he knows, it's that dogs get anxious when they hear a loud noise over and over, just like him at this very moment. The hound, seething, screams that he's a bastard for treating him like a real dog, but Aster says to his face that it's because he is a real dog, a lapdog of the Declans. In the background, Freeze breaks into a cold sweat, completely shocked. He wonders what he's doing. If he loses to this kid, they're both dead. At that moment, Aster activates his skill, Collision, landing a devastating punch on the hound that makes him spit blood through his mask. Watching this, Freeze is paralyzed with fear, but his terror deepens when our boy calls his name again, saying it looks like he's still hiding behind someone else. But now, only the two of them are left. Freeze quickly grabs something in his hand and asks why he's acting so confident when he's just a spoiled brat. But in that instant, to Freeze's shock, his arm is sliced in two. He starts screaming in agony. My arm, terrified. He asks Aster what the hell he's doing and who he is, begging him not to get any closer. But looking back, he spots an orb and thinks, Demon Realm. This is a demon realm, for sure. Then, with a psychotic look, he says, if you kill me, you won't be able to stop the demon realm. Are you really planning to let your friends die in there? But to Freeze's horror, Aster just asks, so what? And he begins to walk slowly toward him. He says, fine, I'll wait until the demon realm devours everyone. You can enjoy the show, but you'll definitely be next. So laugh all you want, because soon, you'll never laugh again. Completely terrified by Aster, he starts wondering what is up with this psycho. This isn't just demonic energy, it's a demon realm itself. And still, he doesn't care if his friends are devoured by demonic monsters. He starts to wonder if he's even human anymore. Nervously, he says, only I can stop the demon realm. In 5 minutes, all your friends are going to die. Aster calmly replies, yes, they will. The long-haired punk says, exactly. So why are you doing this? But Aster appears right in his face, asking if he wants to know the reason. The reason is simple, he says, as he shatters his other hand. Freeze realizes he's stolen his artifact. Our boy says, this artifact? You really think you're the only one who can use it? As he slips it onto his own hand. He sighs, the memories are all flooding back to me now. And so, he places his hand on that sphere, taking command of the demon realm. Freeze, beside him, wonders how this is possible. This man is doing the exact same thing he did. Right in his face, Aster asks how he could ever forget him, the one who taught the young master forbidden magic. The young master managed to survive because of the blood in his veins. But you weren't so lucky. The Declans framed you for countless crimes and decided to execute you, and that's why I came after you, because I didn't want to hand you over to them. And I hunted you for a very long time. I was so crazed I lost all track of time. I prided myself on being able to find anyone on the continent, but you were the only one I couldn't find. It shows just how clever you were. You ran far away, and I searched the gray zones, the kingdom's ghettos, and even the empire's underworld. There wasn't a single place I didn't look, and my hands were stained with blood. After hunting and hunting and hunting for you. In the end, the place you chose to hide was the demon realm, he says with a laugh. Yeah, The demon realm. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I couldn't find you anywhere. Demonic beasts just kept throwing themselves at me. The demonic energy made my body rot and destroyed my mind. But eventually, I gave up on the demon realm and decided to leave. And a certain mercenary was waiting for me outside. He asks if he's heard the news that he was dead. The Declans captured him and squeezed every last drop of info about his forbidden magic and the artifact. And honestly, he just felt empty. He sat in front of the demon realm for days, just staring up at the sky. Pinned to the ground, Frenzy claims he has no idea what he's talking about. Compared to the young master of some noble family, he's just a servant. But Aster just walks towards him, pulling out a potion. He says he's bleeding a lot and thinks he wasn't paying close enough attention. But he can't die yet. That's why he needs to rest a bit and listen to the end. Forcing the potion down his throat, Frenzy wonders why he's suddenly being saved. But this is his chance. He has to find an opening to survive, no matter what happens. After making him drink, our boy continues his story. He says that one day, while he was staring at the sky, a wyvern flew high above him. And on that day, it looked so free. And when he looked at himself, he just felt like an idiot. His quest for revenge had stopped being for his comrades. It had just become a way to vent his emotions, so he erased vengeance from his mind. But as he said this, Frenzy realizes this is the perfect moment. He has to escape. But before he could make a move, our boy grabs his head and says that's when he finally found him today. And yes, this long, long wait is finally over. Because of that, he spent ages hunting down the knowledge he left behind, the demon realm, the forbidden magic, and this disgusting artifact. He even described exactly how his comrades died. And luckily, the only thing he has right now is time, so he's going to recreate every single detail of that pain. It's going to be a very fun time for them both. And watching Aster, Frenzy is in shock, realizing he's a complete madman, and he can't even scream in pain. But right after that, the scene cuts to another location. The instructors and their assistants are storming the testing grounds, running to find the students. And finally, a seriously pissed-off professor descends to join the search. And she curses that it's such a drag. She wasted almost 2 hours of crappy ancestral magic, and she can't let a single person die now. Just then, an assistant appears behind the professor, reporting that all the spells have been broken and the magic eye system is restored. And so, Felina orders them to prioritize the survivors instead of chasing the intruders, and they are forbidden from making any public announcements, because they have no idea how people will react. They need to use the magic eyes or search themselves. Just find the kids. So the assistants rush to find the students, discovering some are badly injured while others are weirdly excited, being chased by golems. In the middle of all the chaos, Felina observes everything, wondering what the hell this is. The intruders had control of the challenge corridor for 2 hours, and there wasn't a single casualty. But at that moment, from a magic orb, someone asks Professor Felina if she can hear him. And Felina says yes, recognizing Parham's voice. Parham immediately tells her that he broke into the inner control room. He tells her to take a look at the monitor crystal, saying it's better if she sees this for herself. And as soon as she opens the screen, she's stunned by the scene. While Parham explains there were 2 intruders, and she can see what's left of them. They're destroyed. The professor thinks she's seen a lot of strange things, but even for her, this is too much. She wonders who could have possibly done this to them. But then she remembers something odd. That one student, when another professor handed her a document, it said he was a kid from the slums of the Gray Zone, accepted through the Blondor family's entry rights. And as she can see, there was a limit exceeded error during his test. Felina murmurs that this is far beyond the level of a student. The other professor had agreed, saying she doesn't know what he is, but this student must be monitored closely. But back in the present, behind Felina, someone appears, saying she's a little late, and she immediately recognizes him as her own boss, the academy's headmaster. The old man says he came as fast as he could, but it looks like it's already over. Felina replies there wasn't much to do, and he came all the way from the eastern continent. The old man says that even so, thanks to her, things ended well. He knew he was right to trust her with this. But after explaining things to the headmaster, he asks with a dead serious look if she's saying that one boy was responsible for this scene. Shortly after, the following night, it was said that every mage has something called an inner demon, a damn thing that appears without any warning. It destabilizes your mind completely. And one thing is for sure, it never ends well. In Aster's past life, he never had anything like that. As a mercenary, he did whatever they told him to do. Even watching comrades die was just part of the job. If they hadn't died because of forbidden magic, he probably wouldn't have been so furious. He thought he had buried all that rage. But his emotions exploded inside the challenge corridor and somehow sowed the seeds of his inner demons. He thinks it feels just like the old days. It's like carrying a bomb in his chest that could explode at any moment. But even so, he asks himself who he really is. A former mercenary. and nothing is more familiar to him than uncertainty. This level of tension is practically a good thing. With that in mind, today, 1 week after the challenge corridor incident, things have finally calmed down. This is his perfect chance, physically and mentally. Today, he is in his best condition, so he summons the secret grimoire of the Crimson Flame, as he thinks that now is the time to read it. He reflects that the secret art he learned in his past life was a non-attribute art, given to mercenaries. Learning an elemental secret art like Crimson Flame is something he's experiencing for the first time, and that's why he reads the first chapter. Damn it, what the hell is going on now? And Andy's just like him. Everyone fawns over him, but he knows what he really is. An ex-mercenary, first and foremost. He'd rather be broken than bend to anyone that's his unbreakable rule, and this guy walks right up and asks if he's not even going to offer a greeting. He might not look like much, but he's the highest authority in this academy. Our boy, seething inside, starts shouting, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Headmaster." All the while thinking, my spine wasn't made for bowing. The old man tells him awkwardly that his manners are impeccable, but maybe he should lower his voice. Our guy just yells again, saying his voice must be too loud, and apologizes sarcastically. But the old man gets dead serious, telling him he can scream all he wants, because no one will hear. He's completely isolated the sound in the area. Our hero is pissed, realizing this old geezer is dangerously smart. He finally looks him in the eye and asks what brings him here. The headmaster says he came for a few answers, and that he'll get the truth out of him, whether he likes it or not. After sitting down, he tells him to sit as well, unleashing his immense pressure again. But our boy realizes it's not magic. This is pure mana. He's creating this crushing force with mana alone. The old man says with a stone-cold face that the feline professor told him he's hiding a few things. He then asks what he's hiding, the pressure nearly forcing our hero to his knees. Gritting his teeth, the protagonist can't believe it. This is the same man who was stuttering through his speech in the Great Hall. He was hiding his true power. He's a complete monster, but compared to that other son of a gun, he's still nothing. He decides to read the flow of mana crushing him and align his own aura to match it. Once the flows synchronize, the backlash will disappear if he just places his hands on him. And with that one indirect move, he completely cuts off the old man's pressure. Our hero speaks up. Judging by your actions, you must be here because of the challenge corridor. The old man states plainly that he's the one who dealt with those rats. The old man, completely serious, stares him down and asks if he won't even try to deny it. The protagonist says it's not something he was trying to hide. It was just better if they didn't find out. It's not a secret he values enough to die for, anyway. He then asks if there's anything else, while the old man's gaze intensifies. Our hero thinks to himself, damn it. He feels just like that time he ate wyvern meat. Next time, he'll make sure to hunt a wyvern that has no mother. But watching him, the old man just snorts and rubs his head. Our boy realizes the headmaster is a rare kind of lunatic. His expression flips from serious to normal to serious again, and then he just smiles. Finally, the old man says that look in his eyes isn't half bad. He'll just ask some questions, and the protagonist will answer what he can. It's better than getting beaten senselessly. He then tells him to sit. After the protagonist sits, the two just stare at each other. He realizes the atmosphere is completely different now. The man feels wild, like a seasoned war mage. This presence, this suffocating aura. This must be who he really is. Someone far beyond the title of headmaster. But before the old man can say a word, our hero interrupts him. By any chance, do you know about a wyvern that became someone's dinner? The question completely shocks the old man, who asks what he means. The protagonist just says it's nothing and tells him to continue. The old man calls him Junior. But our hero shoots back that he's a student, not his junior, and he's the headmaster. The old man threatens him, saying if he spouts that crap again, he'll beat him down for sure. If you're younger, you're a junior, and that makes me your senior. There are no teachers on the battlefield. Our hero wonders what the hell he's talking about. They're in an academy, not a war zone. But still, he relents. Understood, senior. The old man smirks and says he's very obedient. He then says he'll continue. He asks his junior, activating the piercing eyes of a war mage, what kind of scum they were for him to have left them in such a state. He mentally notes that the hostility isn't aimed at him, but at the intruders. Aster then asks what he plans on doing about it. The old man replies that he's going to crush them. He says that His Majesty, the Emperor, will approve, and he'll have to gather his old comrades once more. Hearing this, our hero thinks, if they're his old comrades, then they must be war mages or knights who fought with him. They definitely won't be normal people. He then tells the old man that they're the Declans, but the old man just stares and asks if by any chance he knows the mage who became wyvern food. Our hero says no. The old man says he doesn't know either, and that's why he finds a hole in his story. He asks him what he's hiding. Our hero realizes the old man is as sharp as ever, and it would have been easier to just blame the Declans for the whole thing. But anyway, He says it was the Veermans. The old man asks, "What do you mean, Veermans? Both of them?" But he says no. One was from the Veerman family, and the other was a Friesan magic engineer. The old man asks if he has any evidence. Our hero retorts, asking if he wants everything served on a silver platter. The old man says calmly that he has an insolent way of talking for his age. But fine, he wants to know how he met them. Our hero just shakes his head. The old man understands that he doesn't want to talk, but now he starts answering several other questions for the old man. After a while, the director says he understands. Our hero realizes he said everything he needed to and tried to answer as best as he could, but of course he couldn't. Mention the regression or the grimoire, and he can still feel how pissed the old man is. It's obviously because his answers were total crap, but the old man just calls him Junior again and asks if he happens to know the mage who became goblin food because he still feels like something's missing. Our hero, playing dumb, says no. It's just a misunderstanding. The old man just tells him not to smile at him with those goblin eyes. The protagonist says yes, while thinking this old man is way too perceptive. But right after that, the director says he wants to build a library as tall as a tower, and that's his big dream. He tells Aster that if he leaves the top floor empty, he'll fill an entire wall with bookshelves just for him. Our hero feels a surge of pride, thinking that as expected, the world revolves around connections from blood, region, or school. And so the old man says that regarding the academy's admission ticket, he'll give it to him as a favor. The protagonist thinks, damn it. The director tells him to be careful with that look. You should know you don't need two eyes to see the world. Our hero, smiling nervously, says he's looking forward to seeing what kind of favor he'll ask for. The old man replies, right. The favor can wait. We'll handle it when the time is right. But for now, about that artifact. It's an item that summons a demonic realm. It's very dangerous, but it can also be used in various ways. And its spatial isolation will definitely help in building your tower. Our protagonist thinks that's true. The artifact's spatial isolation function. With that power, even the magic circles in the challenge corridor were rendered completely useless. That's a level of magic even the Academy's professors couldn't break. It could be useful for protecting his tower, but there's just one problem. He tells the old man he doesn't know how magic technology works, but the old man just tells the protagonist, then you can start talking. He'd set up a meeting with the feline professor. She was, after all, one of the few people he knew he could actually trust. But for now, he decided to stop digging into his own identity. The real challenge would be convincing Professor Feline to stand down. He lays out the entire plan for Aster, telling him it's time to make their move. And just like that, the next day arrived. Our boy's just chilling in the library, sipping some coffee and reading a book, but his peace is shattered when Shimby and Damian show up. Damian mentions it's been a while, but our main character is just shocked, because it looks like they've both packed on a few pounds. He asks what happened to them and why they're so chubby, but Shimby just laughs it off. Just then, some random kid comes over and says good morning to Shimby. He asks if Shimby will train magic with him later, and Shimby's like, yeah, for sure. Then, on the other side of the room, a girl approaches Damian. She thanks him for what he did back in the corridor of trials, and Damian just plays it cool. That's when Shimby explains that everything changed after what our guy said about the bracelets. Everyone keeps thanking them, and their friends have even been gifting them elixirs. Some of their parents even helped out their families. And with total sincerity, he thanks Aster, which completely catches our boy off guard. But he just says there's no reason to thank him for that. He never asked them to do anything. They were the ones who decided to help people. That change came from within them. He then asks Shimby what Damian's been up to. He says Damian basically found a golem and figured out how to control it with plant magic. Then he did it over and over again with a bunch of other golems. Our main character realizes Damian has gotten seriously strong, especially for someone without a proper attribute. Shimby cuts in, suggesting they sit down and catch up. It had been a whole week since they'd last seen each other, so they had a lot to talk about. But just then, a new voice appears from behind them. She says that she also has plenty to discuss with him. The feline professor appears, telling Aster she needs a moment with him, alone. Next thing he knows, they're in her office. She asks Aster if he knows why she called him there, but our boy just says he figures it's for some advice. Exactly, she says. She heard the official story. He's the descendant of an ancient war mage, and the masterminds behind the incident were the Vermins. Our main character agrees, saying they're all scum. The professor adds that, generally speaking, anyone associated with the Declans is garbage. Our protagonist thinks back to the cover story the director cooked up for him. Drawing the Blandor's attention to a secret identity would have been too dangerous. So instead, they spun a tale about him being the descendant of a legendary war mage who wandered the continent while hiding his true identity. The director had told him that on top of that, they'd make his so-called master someone who holds a grudge against the Declan or Vermin families. It was the perfect cover story because it lined up with his real emotions. But then, the feline professor adds that either way, there are still too many suspicious loose ends.